Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Caribou. It's a wonderful, wonderful Friday evening. And I tell you, can you believe we are at the end of January already? Today is Friday, January 31st. Can you believe it? It was only New Year's Day just a couple days ago. Time is flying fast. Lots of things are happening. But you know what is wonderful? We are here in the land of the living. Today we are alive, we are strong, and it's good to be alive. Today we are going to break the chain of corruption. That's the topic of our show this evening, and I'm so glad that you have joined us. In Swahili, it's karibu. Karibu means welcome. Thank you, Asante Sana. Thank you, Asante Sana. I love to say that, Asante Sana. It's a pleasure to really be with you tonight. I am excited. I came on and I started to see the names of everybody, and I got a little I got that little excitement. So Teroni, good evening, Teroni. Lucinda, we need to talk. It's the second night I'm saying we need to talk, Lucinda. Nigel Carrington, Mildred Ben. How are you, Queen Bee? Oh, thank God for life. You are alive. You are in the land of the living. That's wonderful. Nat Grant, how are you? Born again, how are you doing, born again? Ansel Seeley, how are you? Marcia, my namesake. How are you? Matt Boland. Oh my goodness, we need to have a get together. Those of you in Barbados, we need to come together. We have not seen each other in a long time. Jacqueline Aline. How are you, Jackie? Sir Alfred Benjamin, all the way from NYC. Listen, Sir Alfred, when you coming home? Joy and Faith, Owen Hines, Beverly Prescott, ADG, Jefferson Robinson, Ryan Rock, Pauline Holder. Oh my goodness, good evening, Matthew Brown, Diana Husbands, Wendy Ford Griffith, Flo Joe Maloney. Good evening to everybody. Tony Williams, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure being with you tonight. Tonight we have a fully packed show for you tonight. Tonight we have with us Senator David Nakid, and he's going to talk to us about that case in Trinidad where we have the commissioner of police arrested, the first female commissioner of police that they've ever had. And she's not a young lady, a mature woman arrested, gun charges, smuggling guns. Oh my goodness, senior superintendent of police charged. That is in Guyana. Listen, this is all throughout the Caribbean. So remember, we're being told that there's an increase in crime and violence throughout the Caribbean, right? And here it is. They are chopping off the heads. Anytime you see you have something, it's going on for so long and it's growing, you've got to check the head. Cocaine importation charges against the Bahamas chief of police. Huh? And they are beating up our little black boys, and the little ones on the ground getting beaten up, dragged to jail, guns put on them. Is this the tip of the iceberg, Caribbean? And Barbados, what's happening in Barbados? What's happening? You're going to tell me all of our top officials are clean. It is just the little boys on the block that's doing all of this crime. But yet, so the Prime Minister said, we are dealing with organized crime. If it's organized crime, it has to have a head. Organized crime, you got to go look higher up. What is our government doing? What is the Attorney General doing? And tonight we are going to talk about judicial corruption in the judiciary. We're going to look at that and look at when there is corruption in any judiciary, how it affects the citizens. So we're going to talk about that. I want to hear your comments. Get ready to type. And we have an interesting segment for you at the end of the program. The diaspora response to Trump's immigration policies and their impact on the Caribbean. Yeah. So we're going to look at all of that. And at the end, we have two persons from the diaspora on two different sides of this issue. It's going to be hot. It's going to be hot. All right. So I'm going to ask you to share, and let somebody know that we're on. Okay. Please do that. Please share. Please share. Yes. Oh my goodness. Wonderful. Good night. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Errol Calendar watching from Connecticut. Hi, Winnie. New people added, I have to say hi to my people. Sharon Innes and this other Mikhail. I don't know how to pronounce that name, but what have become of the marching? Yes, I want to know too. We have to come wheel and come again, right? Cami, good evening, Cami. How are you? Thank you, Cami, for helping to get that important. We were able to get a fridge, working on getting a fridge to someone today. Thank you, Cami, for organizing that. You've been doing that for a couple of weeks, and I want to appreciate that. Appreciate you for doing that. And so that's it, that's the Bajan spirit. And speaking of the Bajan spirit, we're going to go right into our national anthem. Yes, this is what we line up under. Okay, loyal opposition, fall in line. You remember that? Loyal opposition, fall in line. So let's stand to the playing of the national anthem of Barbados. We write our names on a history page with expectations great. I want to ask us tonight, what's your expectation for Barbados? What's your expectation for Barbados? We write our names on history page with expectations great. Each of us We are all history makers, or we can be. We can be. And I often say, you know, if we join and this show, and every time we come on, it's just to complain, that's a problem. We have a problem there. And so I want to always ask us, whenever we discuss something, see yourself, you know, being able to use your skills and to use your abilities and to use what God has given you to make a difference. Ask yourself, what is it that I can do to make a difference in Barbados? What can I do? What can I do to make a difference in the Caribbean, or from whatever the countries that you're watching from? Write your name on history's page. What will they remember you for? What will they remember you for? Yes. Uh-huh. I'm reading the comments here. What would they remember you for? What are you going to be remembered for? What's your contribution to society? What are you giving to your country? What are you giving to your country? What do you expect? So we expect, yes, Queen B, we expect transparency and accountability from this government. But what is it that what's your, so that's your expectation? That is what you're expecting? Okay. Anybody else? What are you expecting? What are your expectations of Barbados? Before we go on, anybody? Or the country you're watching from, what's your expectation? Queen B serious. Queen B said we're voting them out. Oh my goodness. Oh wow. Wow. Well, while you are somebody said we want to know where all the money is. But did you hear you heard the central bank report saying that, you know, things are well, the economy is great. Did you hear that? Are you feeling it? Is the economy great for you? When you go to the supermarket, are you experiencing that? Is that true for you? When you go to the supermarket, are you experiencing a great economy? You said, yes, this is good. Sir Alfred says, I expect the people, the government to serve the people of Barbados. Yes. Somebody's saying they're liars. Oh, Lord. Well, it's true. A lot of them. We are in a real crisis, but they are, you know what? They are, somebody saying that they are, you know, I can't say all the words on here, but they, you know, they're urinating on us and telling us it's rain. You understand that? They stay all, they're giving us golden shower. We're getting golden showers and they're telling us that it's rain. It's beautiful rain. And drink it. It's what is happening. Okay? Better prices, better health care. Now, there is a little song we want to play for you before we go any further. I don't know if Dave has it set up. And while Dave is setting it up, let me ask everybody else, what is it that you're expecting? As you are, somebody says, we want a government, not a loyal government, not a government of darkness. Okay, thank you, Teroni. Anybody else? What are your expectations of Barbados? What are your expectations of Barbados? This is our beautiful country. It is obvious that God loves this country. Yeah? What is it that you are expecting for Barbados? So let's hear a little bit of Sir Ruel, who says, not my vote, regardless of the party. We're going to be a different kind of voter. We're going to participate in our politics. We are going to participate, but it's a different kind of voter we're going to be. But so let's listen to Sir Ruel.
I don't want no politicians to call me. I don't want to see not born by my door. I don't want them messing wrong with me psyche. Not one of them jokers I'm voting for. The coming elections are around the corner, and I can see clear as the lights up there. Don't come and don't talk. Cranleys and roast pork. I know the game that's gonna display. You can't get me for no more. How you get so rich and famous? You can't get me for no more. You're too cocky and you're pompous. You can't get me for no more. Pay me back pay that you promise. You can't get me for no more. Pay me cash and not lip service. All of them politicians is jokers. Birds of a feather, all the same brood. Hiking the salary with taxpayers. Can't pay the mortgage or buy some food. I contact me techie friends up in Russia. I tell them to hack all of their emails. Let me expose them yucks and condoms. It's time to put somebody in jail. You can't get me for no more. Downgrades coming every Friday. You can't get me for no more.
Listen
when
more.
we heading to Zimbabwe. You can't get me for no more.
Listen, Sir Ruel, serious. And I think we need to listen through this show. I have been so educated through this show that nobody can fool me again. They cannot fool me. You understand? They can't fool me again. You know what? They say, give me the vote and watch me. Give me the vote and watch me. That's what they said. Yeah, that's what the Prime Minister said. Give me the vote and watch me. And we are watching her. And I'm telling you, I mean, oh my goodness, this is some catastrophe. Somebody said every word is true. Right? Somebody said this is the anthem for the loyal opposition. Someone sent me today. Right? Folks, you know, and last night I showed you not last night, Wednesday, we had the show and we were discussing the case with Warren Motley and Dr. Sally Griffith, right? I'm trusting I say that correctly, Sally Griffith. And I've been thinking about that case, and the reason I still have been thinking a lot about it because I've gotten so many calls from people, even while we were on the show that night, folks, people who have lost loved ones in the hospital, people who they have cases that have been going on for so long. As you've heard, there's such a backlog of cases at the in the court system. And I cannot understand how this case, only 2.5 years to 3 years the most, and this case is almost it finished trying. It's now gone to going on to the appeal court. And as I said, we give all compassion where it needs to be. And anybody, including the people who called me, including the lady who called me crying from New York because her mom's anniversary of her funeral was actually on Thursday. No, on Wednesday, the day we had the show. And she's sitting there listening to this, listening and realizing, but I have a case as well. My mom died at the hands of the people at the QEH hospital. And would you believe what has happened? No lawyer, all the lawyers she's gone to, they've said to her that they don't want to go up against the government. They don't think she's going to win the case because when you go up against the government, it's, and yet still we can have a case involving the prime minister's brother that is gone to trial already. No wonder she called me crying. She sent an email and then she was crying on the phone yesterday with me. What about the lady whose uncle, they won't even look at him at the QEH hospital? What about the people who have died sitting in a chair? What about the people, the several persons of family members I've spoken to who have gone to the QEH with having a heart attack? Isn't a heart attack an emergency? And we're left to sit in a chair for 4, 3, 4, 5 days and died sitting in a chair. What about the elderly that have been left sitting in a chair with an emergency, needing an emergency procedure sent from a private facility? What about the woman who went to do an operation, folks, and they took out her womb by mistake, and that she cannot get a day in court yet? Do you understand what I'm saying? If we're going to sue for malpractice or anything like that, it should be right across the board. We need to understand, how do cases move to the top? We're hearing from the Attorney General that there is a backlog of cases. In fact, we're talking about criminal cases, because he was talking about in a criminal court alone, 1,606 cases, backlog cases. Caseload backlog over 1,000, more than 1,500, 1,606. Think about that. And those of you who come on and all you're thinking of is politics. Think about people's lives. Think about people's lives. Some of you are on here, you are laughing about 30-0 and all of that. Think about this. Think about how things are done in our front of our faces. And it's like we're not to say anything about it. We're to forget about our relatives that have died at the QEH. Due to, negligence. What about those cases? You understand what I'm saying? How do you move cases to the top? And this is all part of corruption. You see, this is all part of, when you talk about corruption, these are things that you're asking questions about, because to us looking on, it appears, we don't know if it's corruption, but it appears that way. They need investigating, but listen, look at what's happening here. Who's going to investigate it? Who is going to investigate it? And people say, oh, don't touch that, don't say that, because if you say that, that family, that's what people are saying. I'm not saying it about the family. People are saying that the family, they're going to come and get you. You know who that family is? So you're going to tell me there are some people that are so bigger than others that you can't ask a question about them in here? We're telling me we have kings and queens inside of here, that we can't say anything, we can't ask a question? Oh, you have to be so careful because, all I'm asking how do cases, how do they choose the cases that are to go before the court? Seeing that there's a backlog, how is it chosen? How do you make that decision? That's it, Althea. We need a government of character and commitment with godliness. Transparent. We want transparency on how cases are tried. As Mr. Murray would say, what he said, friends, favorite, and fornication. Right? Friends, favoritism, and fornication. Huh? Yes, you're right. We are not afraid. So you let them know, because you see, these people here that are, it's almost like you must not say anything about this government. Huh? The things that they're doing right in front of us, they're taking up most of Barbados, selling it off to the elites. I mean, would you believe? I mean, I don't know. People are so brazen. You pick up your whole sister that have your own last name, and pick up that person who was running a restaurant and send the person to become some head of some tourism. What is it? Is it a commissioner? What is it again? In the UK. Some big tourism position in the UK on behalf of Barbados. Somebody was running a restaurant. Yeah. Folks, what I'm saying is this: open our eyes, open your eyes, see what is happening around you. Don't be afraid to speak. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Never be afraid to ask questions. No, none of them. The Prime Minister is not above questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Yeah. As Sir Alfred said, fear got the citizens in Barbados in a certain situation. Right? And I think it is so important that we ask questions and not be afraid. Corruption. If anything looks, smells, sounds like corruption, it must be said without fear. This country has come a long way to fearful or uttering one thing against the unfair practices of the government. They say if you see something, say something, but not about them. If you see something that they are doing, don't say it. It's not about them. They see something, say something, has nothing to do with them. Right? And somebody says, sufferation coming, Trump. No, sufferation is here. Mere motley. That is what is happening here, because the suffering, we live in Barbados. Trump doesn't live here. Yeah? But they can't get a proper job. But look at what the central bank is saying. Look at what the governor is saying. Bought and paid for. That's what you call bought and paid for. Singing for your supper. Yes? Well, tonight we are going to go straight into, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Again, about this particular case, to stay on it, folks. Watch it. Ask questions about it. watch this case. Ask questions about it. Nothing is wrong with that. You hear? Don't stop asking. Yes, Nikki. So tonight, folks, we're going to have Senator Nakid is going to be on, and he's going to be talking to us about what is happening in Trinidad. And I don't know if Dave could put up the article about the commissioner of police. Did you all see the article with the commissioner of police? Now, this is the commissioner of police. I want us to stop and think about this. Any Trin is on? Any Trin is on? If you're a Trini, let me know. Trinidad Commissioner of Police arrested. Trinidad Commissioner of Police arrested. Now, folks, did you remember all of the when they had the emergency, the state of emergency in Trinidad? Who remembered that? The state of emergency in Trinidad. And when do you also remember when you had Christmas list, and he was actually Christmas list was showcasing what was happening in Trinidad, and they locked him up. In fact, he has a case running now. Do you remember that? And to think this commissioner of police must have been involved in locking up Christmas list. Why was she locking up Christmas list? Huh? Christmas list now has a case. This is what I'm trying to tell you guys about the corruption that is happening. We are talking about crime in the Caribbean and talking about everybody putting out the statistics and so on. And she would have been the one giving the statistics, what is happening and planning and what is it? What's the role of the Commissioner of Police? They have to be able to come up with strategy or to execute the strategy to fight crime. And she, it's now alleged that she was involved in a racket, bringing in guns in the country. Now, you've heard us say on this show, if it's organized crime, we're talking about it says organized is an organism. There's a management to it. There's a brain to it. Just like the body is a full organ. So you have the brain to it. So there's a head. Those that think can come up with the strategy for it. Do you understand? Their hands, their feet. It's an organism that's alive. So when our Prime Minister in Barbados tells us that there is what they're dealing with, do you remember she said to us, Prime Minister Mia Mottley says to Barbados, what you're dealing with is organized crime. So my question is, where is the head of this crime? How do we cut off the head? Where do we find the head? Huh? And the only person getting killed and lock up is the poor people, children. You see these wicked people. This could be a grandmother, easily a grandmother. Huh? Look like a nice lady. A nice lady. If it is true, oh my goodness, she would have fooled a lot of people. We are waiting for Senator Nakid to join us as we deal with this issue. But I'm here reading your comments and I'm asking you to like and to share. So let's just read the article while Senator Nakid comes in. Guys, are we liking and sharing? We're gonna have to get into this tonight. I want us to be active. Okay? I want us to be active. Trinidad and Tobago Police Commissioner Earl Harewood Christopher has been arrested by her deputy and is being questioned by investigators at her office at the police administration building in Port of Spain over the importation of guns for the Strategic Service Agency. Listen to me, the importation of guns. This breaking and developing story has the Twin Island on edge as they're in the middle of a state of emergency order. Our affiliate at Trinidad Express, Curtis Rampersad, gave us the latest. So we would need to go up a little bit if we can. I don't know what we could just play. I wonder if we could play the right, it's not playing. Okay. But folks, you're right, Althea McGregor. Check the heads. Check the heads. Yes, the nice looking, decent looking ones from the heights and the terraces. Living large. And that I am telling you, if this was a real place, you would see how many of them they find in here. But it's not a real place. As Mr. Glenn Morris says, what does he say? Friends, favorites, and fornication. That's the corruption, you know. That's the collusion that happens. All tied up together. We're getting it played. Can it play?
Earlier this afternoon. This is.
So let's listen.
The commissioner has been arrested earlier this afternoon. This is part of a probe into the importation of 2 sniper rifles for the Strategic Services Agency, the SSA. So what has happened since then is that the investigators would have spoken to the commissioner this afternoon. Her lawyer was contacted just before lunchtime today, I think. The seemingly obvious next step would be to get advice from the Director of Public Prosecution, that is Roger Gaspard, in terms of the officers will approach the DPP for advice in terms of the way forward, and based on his advice, they may decide to charge the commissioner, which will then lead to another process of having to replace a commissioner, which involves the cabinet and the government.
Who do you think would have been the big whistleblower on this particular matter?
We believe that somebody who had intimate knowledge of the SSE at the time.
Wow. This is what has happened. You think this could happen in Barbados? You think, listen, everybody, we've been saying on this show, if we have an increase in crime, an increase in gun violence, there is an increase in guns. Where are the guns coming from? We have been asking, everybody's been asking that question. You're going to tell me that the powers that be don't know the source of the guns? You really think they don't know the source of the guns? I'm seeing Senator David Nakid coming in. Listen, from the highest voices, from the highest offices, to the darkest alleyways, corruption is the fuel that keeps the engine of organized crime running. That is why we have not been able to figure it out yet. This is how much the corruption in Barbados, it is so sewn together. Trinidad is getting, something is happening in Trinidad. But listen, this is how Barbados is like. This is how it is. Across the Caribbean, we are witnessing a surge in violent crime, drug trafficking, and gang activity. But behind the headlines, there is a deeper story. A web of corruption that enables criminals to operate with impunity. Who is really in control? Loyal opposition? Is it the politicians, the businessmen, or the crime lords pulling the strings from the shadows? And how has the drug trade transformed our small island nations into battlegrounds of power and profit? Tonight, folks, we expose the dangerous connection between corruption and organized crime in the Caribbean. We'll uncover how dirty money is washing through our financial systems, how drug cartels have infiltrated law enforcement, and why justice often seems out of reach. The question is, can we break the chains before it's too late? Join us tonight, folks, in this discussion as we seek to break the chains of corruption. Help me welcome Senator David Nakid. Good night, Senator. You're muted. You're muted.
Good night to you and all your listeners, everyone worldwide watching you and your very popular program.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. It's a real pleasure and privilege to have you on tonight. And you know, I'm going to mute you until I'm ready for you to speak. There's something coming through. I'm very sorry. You know, for when I read what is happening in Trinidad, and not just Trinidad, but throughout the Caribbean, you know, it just hurts your heart, really, to see how many lives are being lost. The year has just started in Barbados. We've had 9 murders already, and the year it's just January 31st. How many have you had in Trinidad?
We have 13 murders officially until now for the year, and we are not even into February. We have 30 murders for the year.
Yes.
And this very corrupt, inept government claims that as a victory, because we had 44 murders at the end of February last year. In a nation of 1.4 million, we have 30 murders for the year already, almost a murder a day. In an island, small island developing nation that has oil, gas, the Pitch Lake, and many other natural resources. It's absolutely ridiculous, as you said. But we'll get into that as we go on.
Yeah, so you know, you're in a state of emergency at the moment, right? And we are hearing of this commissioner of police. Tell us can you describe what kind of person is she? Is this somebody that anybody suspected would be involved in anything like this?
Well, we can't pronounce on the commissioner of police, although she is a PNM appointee, the ruling government. I personally believe, before we pronounce on her, she's innocent until proven guilty. And we are hearing a lot of different things because this is a government and this is a police service that has not been very clear. And so we are hearing that it could have been an administration error, We are hearing that it was a normal procedure, that somewhere along the way mistakes were made. So we do not yet have all the facts. What I can tell you is that she was arrested and detained. My personal opinion is this is just another black woman that was sacrificed on the altar of expediency as far as the PNM is concerned, and I'll tell you why. The PNM has been under a lot of pressure in the last 2 weeks because of their loss at the Privy Council in the matter of the Auditor General versus the Minister of Finance. It's something that I spoke about extensively in the Senate and on my social media page. And Jawanti Ramdas, the Auditor General, was given the right to judicial review. And the Privy Council did something that was many consider very out of character. They pronounced, why isn't the Minister of Finance under investigation instead of the Auditor General? They pronounced that, and that's massive. And that took off virally here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I believe this is a distraction, and I believe Christopher, who I hold no grief for, but I've seen the PNM sacrifice our strong argument, whether you agree with them or not, on the altar of political expediency. I point to the President of the Republic, who was bullied by Christopher Rowley, the Prime Minister, into intercepting a meritless, and she will forever, her legacy, a woman who served magnificently in the judiciary, went on to become president, came out of poverty, and all of that was a symbol, as I've spoken about this, for me a symbol, because she reminds me of my mother, my grandma, a black woman who came out of poverty, did well, and Rowley has condemned her to a legacy of derision. And that's what she remembered for. He bullied her, intercepted the meritless, and she ended up breaking the Constitution, along with another black woman, East Indian, but you know my opinion, I'm a Pan-Africanist. All our Africans in India are black, we are black people. And Blissy Prasad also went that route. Then Rowley and they did it again to one of their own senators, Laura Lizama Leasing, who was sacrificed when an accusation was made, a unilateral order was given against her. She was immediately fired from the Senate. And then we had Penelope Beckles of the PNM. The woman, I believe, was trying to be the leader, political leader of the PNM, and Rowley and they manufactured basically.
Okay, your audio is going up and down. I'm not sure what the reason is.
Are you hearing me now or no?
Oh, yeah, we are hearing you. Let's keep going and see, because we want to hear what you have to say. But
someone tried to call her, maybe that's right.
Yeah.
So I believe we have all of these black women that the PNM has sacrificed. Anytime they are under pressure, all of a sudden you see a very large distraction coming into play. And this is what has happened with earlier here with Christopher. I mean, we might really end up in a week or so that she was not charged. She has been arrested, been detained, and we might very well end up, and people would have forgotten that the major issue at this point in time is that $3.8 billion went missing from the Treasury and went missing from that report of the Auditor General that has not until now been accounted for by the Minister of Finance or this PNM government. And I hold no coincidences when it comes to the PNM. They are a neo-colonial institution. They are a legacy of our colonial masters from before, and the PNM has done that since their inception in 1956. So I give no coincidences to them. I believe they are as corrupt as any colonial slave masters that we had before, and the proof is in the pudding. Look at Trinidad and Tobago. After 62 years, with all the resources in the world, we are basically back to zero in terms of social development. The amount of poverty and pauperization of our marginalized communities, especially on the east-west corridor, where you have been. So, and we can point to all the other countries, Grenada,
But let me ask
Barbados.
you
How
something,
many
though, Mr.
leaders?
Nakid. What, Mr. Nakid, you are in, you're still in a state of emergency there in Trinidad, and if so, describe what is happening in Trinidad for you at this time.
Yes, we are very much in a state of emergency. And this state of emergency hasn't put any serious dent on the criminality and crime that we have seen before. What this SOE has done.
What's happening in the state of emergency? How is it being conducted? What is happening? What are you experiencing?
All it has given powers to the TTPS and the army to conduct joint patrols, to detain without a warrant, to enter your property without a warrant. The usual state of emergency procedures that curtail basically a lot of your constitutional rights. And I think a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago wouldn't have minded if that was put in place when we in the opposition were calling for it. At the time, then it would have made a serious impact. But now, I think you can have 2 or 3 states of emergencies. What is the youth in the ghetto going to do when basically he feels there's no sense of hope, no sense of place or purpose for him to go in this society? He doesn't care. That youth in the ghetto doesn't care if it's a state of emergency now or after. He will find a way to feed himself and feed his family, whether that be a legal way or a legal way. In other words, the SOE hasn't really put a dent on anything.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, you've been living in Trinidad. You are working in some of the tougher areas in Laventille. You call it the East-West corridor. Is that what you call it?
Yes, correct.
The East-West corridor. And what are it's Laventille, and what are some of the other areas in your constituency? What are some of the? I know Laventille, so I say Laventille. Where else?
Well, Laventille is basically is really what we call has been the vanguard of what we call Africanism in Trinidad and Tobago. That's where my mom is from, actually, Picton, Laventille, and that area is very, very much referred to. It has become a very notorious area. However, that area has given us the birth of the steel pan and given us very famous, including my uncle, the famous Rudolph Charles, the hammer. That area has become notorious because of the crime and the criminality there. But if you look at the facts, it's an area just like Mova, Caranage, Cookeriet, up to Tinapuna, where I am the coordinator. And I think that's where you did some of your work when you came to Trinidad. You were in Tinapuna.
Yes, in Tinapuna, yes.
Yes, I'm the coordinator for that constituency for the UNC. And those areas basically have been starved of resources by the PNM government. And the youth employment is massive in these constituencies. Massive, my sister, massive. And they've left basically they've left these youth without any hope of employment or serious employment. In other words, this PNM government, what they have basically done, they have sacrificed these young black boys and girls in the ghetto to work in the 1% businesses that are very, very low-paid jobs, low-skill jobs, and it's on purpose. It's on purpose because you starve any affluent community, you deprive them of sport and education, and they will turn out the same way. So we know it's intentional by Keith Rowley, especially this PNM government, Rowley and Stuart Young and these people, and you get what you get now. You get rampant crime and criminality.
But I mean, I know you're stressing on Rowley, but I mean, ever since I've been in Barbados, I knew that there has been a rise in crime in the Caribbean. It has been rising, regardless of the party that is in power. But what I want to ask you, you know, they are looking right now, as you said, she's innocent until proven guilty. At this woman, the commissioner of police. But oftentimes when we see the arrests, we see the young boys from Laventille or the young people from Laventille. How do you think? What's your idea of what is really going on in Trinidad? How do you see the connections happening in Trinidad? Is it really coming from the young people in Laventille? Is that really the source of all of this crime?
No, it's not. The source of all this crime, especially the crime that we have, which has to do with guns and drugs, can never be the source. Can never be the young boys in Laventille or Tinapuna or Mongdo. These boys can't afford a gun that costs $5,000 and $6,000. We are seeing high-powered rifles, high-powered guns that these boys can't even think to pay for. So we have to ask who are bringing in these guns, very expensive guns, and putting it in the hands of these boys in the ghetto in order to protect the drugs importation and the gun importation. So that's not the source at all. They are not the source. They are the victims themselves. Now, we or I do not condone in any way once they decide to commit a crime. We have to be very harsh with them when they come to, like with anybody else. In the end, justice must be served. But we have to remember that it is not only a policy to meet these young boys from the ghetto in the penal system, where we put them away or we deal with them harshly and we take them out of the mainstream system. No, we have to give them the opportunities before we hold them to account. And this is what something you mentioned that crime has been increasing. Well, you are right around the Caribbean because this is something that has been happening throughout.
Okay, you're going again. Your voice is going again. Going again. Yes. Let's try again.
Okay. This rise in crime is something that has been happening throughout the Caribbean because all the governments have starved these communities, marginalized communities, of the necessary resources to elevate them out of a cycle of poverty. So you're gonna get a result. What you sow, what you reap is what you sow. And that is exactly what has happened throughout the Caribbean. All of these governments have catered to the 1%. I mean, these boys, most of them, have never been on a boat. Are they the ones bringing in the guns and the drugs? No, they are not. So who is bringing in the guns and the drugs? And that's something the governments across the Caribbean, they have failed to address for the last 40, 50 years. And that's why we see these rampant. And the media is very complicit in the narrative that it's the boys from the ghetto that are doing these, committing these crimes, but they are not the source of the crimes because they do not have the money and the wealth to bring in the guns and the drugs. You're talking about this is a $1 billion industry.
So let me ask you something, Mr. Nakid. I know you have to go, and we're gonna take 2 more minutes of your time. But let me ask you: is it a case where you believe that there is the organizing is happening throughout the Caribbean or cross Caribbean lines? So Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados. Do you think that it is happening at that level? It's happening regionally?
Of course it is. You have, something that people don't address. I don't know why the media. It's a fact. The Mexican cartels are very much throughout the Caribbean now, not only the South American cartels. And they operate at a level where the corruption is absolutely endemic. They corrupt the judiciary of countries. They corrupt the top politicians. So they are operating on a level that you will probably never hear about them in the media or otherwise. They've corrupted the media, and that's why you never hear about them. But it's impossible that what is happening in these small countries that can easily protect their borders, that guns and drugs are coming into the communities where our young young boys and girls are exposed and vulnerable because our governments have failed to take them out of poverty, have failed to address the porous borders, have failed to protect our citizenry across the board in the Caribbean. And all these ruling politicians are complicit and corrupt.
Yeah.
All of them.
I hear you say something there about porous borders. You don't have time for me to talk about that, but that is something that I see. It's a big discussion with Trump at the moment and his borders. But you have said that in so many times. I know you have the Venezuelans coming into Trinidad, so you seem to be concerned about the borders of Trinidad and Tobago. I kind of 1 more minute. Can you make a mention of that, because it's connected to crime, isn't it?
Of course, I'm not only concerned about the borders of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm concerned about the borders of Barbados, Grenada, St. Lucia, all St. Vincent, all these countries, Jamaica. Because we are islands, but we do not have this expanse where we cannot protect our borders. We can. So I think it's something it's willfully done by our governments. I think our governments have been complicit. I think if we do a forensic, independent investigation, we'll find a lot of top officials and governments complicit with these gangs in Mexico and South America. And that's why we are in the state that we are. We have turned paradise, because the Caribbean is a paradise, we've turned it into a living hell for our citizens.
Wow. Listen, Senator Nakid, it's always a pleasure having you. And since I've met you, you have been saying the same thing. It's a pity the people in your country they're not listening. But and us in the Caribbean, we really need, sometimes we have these shows and we talk and the same things are being said and nothing is being done. But you have been you have been singing the same song. That's, you've been saying the same thing. So thank you so much.
Unfortunately, I have been, and the only way we can ask our citizens to become more participatory in our democracies, and people like you who are working hard to make that change, that's all we can ask.
Yes.
Have a good night.
Yes, thank you so much, Senator Nakid. God bless. Thank you.
God bless.
Yes. Well, there you have it. That was Senator David Nakid. I told you that we were going to have him. And I told you that we're going to have Mr. Cassio Stewart as well from the Bahamas. Welcome, Mr. Stewart. Dr. Stewart, I need to say. Dr.
So
Stewart.
good to see you, Marcia. Always good to be on your show, and it's always a pleasure to be able to speak to the Caribbean at large and to address the growing concerns that we have across the Caribbean region.
Yes. Sir, I want to, once again, I know you're a busy man, and we spoke last night and you told me you'd come on, and you're right here, and I don't want to take it for granted. I want to say thank you, and we love to hear from you. You're one of the voices in the Caribbean that you speak with such authority. And I love to talk with you, especially on these issues. Now, you would have been listening to Senator Nakid, and as I asked him about whether he thinks the crime is being organized regionally. And I want to start our discussion there before I go into your specific situation, because you do have officials that have been charged. That have they been charged yet, or just arrested in your country?
Charged one, the police officer in charge of CID was also arrested for some.
What is CID? Let's spell it out.
Criminal Investigation Department.
Yes.
There was implications with some bank robbery, and so on. So he's being charged right now. That's not the same Elvis Curtis who is being charged for conspiracy to import drugs into the U.S. So
that is the senior superintendent that has been charged to cocaine. This is a cocaine. Dave, can you put up the article for Bahamas, please? Yes. So go ahead and let's talk about the
So
Caribbean, and then we're gonna, yeah.
these issues speaks to a great concern and a growing concern about the mistrust amongst our institutions. Institutions like the police force, whether it be the Bahamas, Barbados, we should always respect those institutions, and the men and women who hold rank in those institutions should always remain above board. Now, to see that the man in charge of the criminal investigation department is being investigated for allegedly being a part of some bank robbery and murder is scary.
And murder?
Yes, and so yeah, so that's the alleged. It's alleged that there was some of the guys who were a part of it was also murdered. Not saying he did it, but that's some of the allegations that are circling in that circle. But these are very scary times we live in, because we need to hold our police department at a higher standard. And when you put on the uniform, you have to be above reproach and above board. And for you to get entangled in these types of crime speaks to a serious problem in our society. To see that the commissioner of police in Trinidad arrested, it speaks to a serious problem in our society. And so we need to demand accountability. And like I said, I think the next generation of leaders in the Caribbean need to become very, very angry and to speak to the leadership across the board. We have to demand better from our leaders. And if they're not suited to do better, then we need to replace them, because you cannot wear the uniform and still be entangled in this level of criminality or any kind of criminality. Because when you decide to become a law enforcement officer, then you are the one enforcing the law. You cannot be the one breaking the law. And so if you are the one breaking the law, then the whole society breaks down. And so what's happening now, the young people throughout the Caribbean have no respect for law and order, because they say the law officers are breaking the law, and therefore they have a right to break the law too. And they are right, because the way the law works is that the law is, nobody can break the law. If any one person can break the law, then everybody should be able to break the law. And so we should be across the board where the law cannot be broken. And so for these law enforcement officers who break our law, it sends a bad message to the next generation that it's okay to commit crime, and that is not okay.
Yeah, because the crime in Bahamas, just like here in Barbados, I mean, it's like hitting the roof, right?
Yes,
Um,
we have. Yes, we have a high murder rate, and we also struggling to deal with, rape and murder, and so we have our share of problems in the Bahamas, and I also see what's going on in Barbados. I see what's going on in Trinidad. I need to tell you that, I was robbed in Trinidad at gunpoint at several years back, a couple of years ago, and so these things are scary for us as a nation, but as a community, as a Caribbean community, we have to speak with one voice that we will not tolerate crime, we will not tolerate criminality, and we expect better from our leaders, whether they be politicians, whether they pastors, whether they the police officers. We expect better and we demand better. And so if you're not fit to wear the uniform, whether you are in the church, whether you are on the force, whether you are in the courts, you need to leave. You need to not be in this position, because we want better leadership across the board in the Caribbean. And
so,
this is
so,
coming from the
so,
next generation.
but Cassius, Dr. Stewart, I love what you're saying there. That as a Caribbean, we need to demand this of our leaders, because if the leaders are breaking the law, if our police is breaking the law, what is going to happen, to in the society? But how do we go about that as a region? What are you doing in your country, and what would you suggest we do as a region?
Well, I think we need to bring it up at CARICOM. I'm not sure when CARICOM meets again, but I think we also need to send letters into the CARICOM secretariat to let them know that, listen, the next general meeting or heads of meeting, we need to demand more. We need to demand more from these institutions that we call leaders. And so we as a community, we could make our voices heard through the CARICOM secretariat, and but we have to send our letters in. We have to let our voices be heard, because when they sit in these general meetings, they need to know that the communities, civil society, and different pockets of communities throughout the Caribbean are saying that, listen, we are concerned about the level of criminality, not just necessarily in the population, but in the leadership on these and in these major institutions.
And you think that that will bring some change?
Well, I mean, it's a beginning point. It's a beginning point. But remember now, we all come from these society because um, whether you're a police officer or politician, you all come from the citizenry, and if the
Mm-hmm.
citizenry has problems with discipline and leadership and understanding the rule of law, then when they move from the citizenry and get elevated to institutions like the police force, they take with them their attitudes and their behavior, and
Mm-hmm.
so we need to practically build better individuals. And so social engineering is what we need in the Caribbean. We need to build better individuals. If you can build a better individual, you will have a better country. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is the individual, they are flawed. And because we have flawed individuals, these same flawed individuals are elected to parliament. They are selected to be in the police force. They are selected on the defense force. They are judges, and they take their flaws with them. And so we need to build better individuals. And so part of the problem is that the same way we take time out to socially engineer, to engineer buildings, we need to
Mm-hmm.
engineer human beings. And we try to figure out, we think that it's not possible, but if you look at the way the Asian country are now structuring and socially engineering their citizens, they are disciplined, they follow the rule of law, and they know what it is to be a part of societal
So
norms.
give me an example of that. In say take you talk about engineering and individuals. So I want us to bring it down, so that the average person listening can understand it. A mother, a child at home. How do you begin to build a person, the right kind of a person?
Well, every individual comes from a family. And these
Mm-hmm.
families who have children, the mothers who have children, some of them are not trained to be mothers. And so society needs to be a part of equipping mothers to be mothers and fathers to be fathers. And so
Mm,
we need civil society to be a part of strengthening the family structure so that they can pass on the value system into the children. So when the children grow up, they understand what societal norms are, what to
mm-hmm.
respect the rule of laws, how they should respect the rule of law, and how to be proper citizens, so that no matter where they land in whichever part of the world, they understand how to be disciplined. In the Bahamas, we have a phrase in our constitution where that it says that we the successors of these family violence recognize that our freedom will be guaranteed through a national commitment to self-discipline. Now, that's the first tenet. The self-discipline is what we lack throughout the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even though that's a part of the preamble of the Constitution of the Bahamas, it is so important because when I raise my children, I have to raise them to understand what is discipline. That if you see $5 on the street, that's not yours, so you cannot take that. If you
Mm-hmm.
see someone doing drugs, you have to tell them that is wrong. If you see
Mm-hmm.
somebody out of line, because we have to engineer people. Now, how do you engineer people? I mean,
Yes.
for those who follow scripture and those who read the Bible, if you read what Moses said to the children of Israel, he said, "Write the laws on your hands, write it on your doorpost, write it everywhere, so that when you wake up, you can see it." In other words, it's a constant repetitiveness of who we are as a people, what we need to do, and how we are to behave in our society. And so, the preamble of our Constitution, the rule of law, should not just be on the paper anymore. It should be written in the hearts of every citizen. The problem is that our leaders have from the 60s and 70s, we wrote on the paper the preamble of these constitutions and the rule of law, but it still remained on the paper. It was never written in the hearts of the people. One of the greatest example of this is Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew knew what needed to be done. And so he was able to write on the hearts of every Singaporean what it is to be a Singaporean and what it is to understand the rule of law. And this is why they stand now as number one in education, number one in sports, number one in cleanliness, and low crime rate, because they understand you don't need to tell them to be disciplined. It's in their heart. They wake up in the morning, that's who they are. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is in the Caribbean, the laws are on the paper. The law needs to be written in our hearts now. And that takes strategic leadership and that takes social engineering.
Wow. That is some doing, because I'm listening to you, and I'm saying that, thinking about my own children and how we will drill those kinds of things in them. If my child comes home with money or anything from school, he's going to get lashes. He has to get it, bring it back. I go to the teacher. I go through all of that. He has to apologize to the class. All of that. That is what we do as
Precise.
parents.
That's
So
it.
how is it? How can we put that into policy now, so that that policy translates into every home, get into every home, and we really begin to change behavior? Because you are right, something has changed over the years in the Caribbean. Something has definitely changed. How do we begin to put, yeah, we put it in policy, but how do we get it integrated in homes and actually practically working?
Remember now, the African community is for the last 2,000 years had more an oral tradition. And that oral tradition was not only about the history, but it was also about behavior and how you act and how you respond. And so while there was nothing written, it was passed on from generation to generation to generation of certain behavior and how we are to act. Now,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're in Barbados or you're in the Bahamas or you're in Trinidad, if you are from the African diaspora, we all understand the same thing because
Mm-hmm.
our ancestors passed some things on to us. We know
Mm-hmm.
that we understand that we have to be disciplined. And so what happened now is that we are now inculcated with another type of virus coming in from America. The virus is you cannot discipline your children no more. Well, this was the past. You cannot discipline your children in school. The teachers cannot discipline the kids no more because they are outlawed discipline, corporal punishment. And so we have a society where we cannot touch the children. Remember now, foolishness is
Mm-hmm.
bound up in the heart of a child, but the
Right.
rod of correction will drive it far from him. So we told God that, listen, you don't make any sense anymore. Discipline children is outdated. You are old and your theories are old, God, and therefore
Yeah.
you see, America now is falling apart with guns in the street, guns in the school, guns everywhere. The kids are bringing guns because the teachers cannot discipline the children. And so in the Bahamas, we have now adopted the same theory. In Barbados, we adopted the same
Yeah.
woke ideology that you cannot discipline children. And the minute you reach to the point where you allow the foolishness that is bound up in the heart of a child to grow, it spills out into the street, it spills out into the community, and these children become murderers, rapists, and so on and so on.
Yeah, but don't you think? I mean, I'm truly enjoying this conversation, but I'm wondering if we're just talking, because I see people. There are people that are on, they're watching, and I would love to hear what they think about what you're saying, because as you're talking, Dr. Stewart, I'm looking at my own family and my boys. And we did not spare the rod in our family, because the thinking was, if we did not lash those boys, the police is going to lash. Somebody's going to
Right?
do it.
Exactly.
Either the teacher, the police, somebody outside of our family going to do it at some point. And I had boy children, and our thinking was that none of you going to end up in prison, and none of you, you're going to live a disciplined life. And I thank God, and thank God for my husband, who's also a disciplinarian. That our boys, I every time I give God thanks, because it's a daily thing. You can't be bragging about these things. It's a daily thing. But do you think, though, that we will ever get back to that place where we understand the importance of disciplining our children?
It's leadership. It's leadership in every Caribbean island that says, listen, we are not going to be dictated by another man's country as to how we discipline
Mm,
children. And so what we have, that's because you have Amnesty International and you have human rights, this group, which is headed by a bunch of woke individuals who don't really care about human rights, but they just want to push their agenda. And if we are led by them, then we will never change. But if we have leaders in the Caribbean who say, listen, we're going to do this the way we believe it's going to work. We're going to allow we're going to allow the schools to discipline children when they are out of order. We're going to allow parents to discipline children when they're out of order. Now, there are parameters. Now, some parents gets out of hand. They try to half kill the children. We're not saying half kill children, but you discipline your children. And
Mm-hmm.
so whether or not we could draw the line, because some parents don't understand what disciplining is, and so that's the issue right there. That's the soft spot. But we need to be to the point where we bring back discipline in our society. The reason
Mm-hmm.
why the police officer can commit crime because he lacks discipline, because
Yes.
he lacks discipline. And so we need to understand that that discipline comes from an inculcation of the laws, societal norms, and who we are. And what we do is, I mean, I have four daughters, and my wife, we try our best to, if I could use the word, brainwash them into understanding what it is to do right all times.
Mm-hmm.
Be the best person, be the right person, always do what is right. And you got to brainwash them every day.
Oh, he dropped out. He dropped out. Hello? That was going so well. He dropped out. If I don't know, Dave could reach out to him, let him know that he's off. If he doesn't realize that he's off. Yeah, but what do you guys think about what he's saying? Because sometimes we have these discussions and you wonder if it makes any sense because we have gone so far at this point. In my mind, to me, we have gone so far. Can we really can we really get back there is the question. Can we really get back there? Huh? That's a question that we have to ask. Can we get back there? Right? Antonio is saying it makes so much sense because when you think about it, if we don't discipline, somebody's gonna discipline those children. Your child is cute now and is doing or she doing cute things, and they slap you in your face and you think it's cute. They eat and spit something on you, you think it's cute and you're laughing and it's funny and say, oh, but no, 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 no. If you don't discipline the teacher, and then when the child goes to school, they try to slap the teacher too. They try to spit on the teacher. They try to throw things at the teacher, and the teacher is not in a position to discipline that child. Think about it. There's some parents, if the teacher even put the child in the corner to stand up, and they come home and tell the parents, they go and quarrel with the teacher. The teacher and the principal, they have no power. So our society has broken down. And this is why some of our little black boys, we see the police take them and kicking them and beating them all about. Because we did not that they're right in doing that. I'm just saying that we did not set the boundaries in the home and we did not discipline. What are your thoughts about it? Are we just chatting here? This don't make any sense. Their grandparents listening, their aunties, their uncles. Do we want to see a change in the society? Do we believe in this social engineering that he's talking about? What are your thoughts? I want to hear from you. Okay, Dr. Stewart, you're back.
Yes, sorry I got kicked out for a while. But it's time for us to now wake up and understand that what we've been doing over the last 20 years has not been working. We're adopting a new type of methodology to governance, to family parenting, to family life. It doesn't work. The method that made us who we are as Africans and members of the African diaspora, that's who we are. That's what made us who we are. We built societies with that. We need to go back to those core values, go back to family. Family is the most important part, and every family is made up of individuals. And remember now, there was an African proverb that said, it takes a village to raise a child.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody used to discipline the child. Everybody was the mother. Everybody was the father in the village. So there was no one parent, this is my child. Everybody was the parent. And so that's how we need to adopt those policies, because we understand we are still in communities. Every community, whether it's in the Bahamas, whether it's in Kingston, whether it's in Mobay, whether it's in Trinidad and Tobago, we have communities, and so we have to understand that we got to use the strength of those communities to raise our communities and say, listen, this is what we believe, and this is what we accept, and this is what we don't accept. But we also got to hold our elected leaders more accountable, because you know, I find that throughout the Caribbean, when people are elected, they automatically feel like they're endowed with a certain degree of wisdom from on high, and they are untouchable. And the general population feel that because they are elected and they are a member of parliament and they are cabinet ministers, that you cannot advise them. These people still need to be advised that, listen, there are certain things that we expect from you, and there are certain behaviors we expect. We demand accountability, and we want our countries to be run the right way. And the people got to demand that. And if the leaders are not doing what they need to do, then the people need to say, listen, we do not accept that type of lifestyle from our leaders. We demand accountability. And so
Yeah.
that's where we need to be.
Yeah, and as you're talking about that, I don't know if Dave could put back on the screen I want to read to the listeners what has happened in the Bahamas just before Christmas. Was a big issue in Bahamas where it was a senior superintendent who is now charged with cocaine, what do you call it, smuggling cocaine into the country,
Into the United States.
into the United States. So
Yes.
it says here, the Bahamas police commissioner has resigned. This is actually the police commissioner.
Yeah, he resigned.
Wow.
He resigned because under his leadership, there was a lot of instance of failure under his ranks. He was never implicated in anything, but he resigned because I think it was too many different issues under his watch, and so he stepped down. And now we have our first female commissioner of police, and hopefully she can bring a new, I guess, a new life to the force in the Bahamas, and hopefully we can have that level of accountability that we are asking for. But we want to see this across the board, whether you're in St. Lucia, we want to see it in Jamaica, we want to see it in Trinidad, St. Kitts and Nevis. And so all these Caribbean countries, all of us face the same thing. All of us face the same struggles. All of us have the same desires, and all of us have the same breakdown in leadership. But we need to demand more as the people, because the next generation of leaders need to stand up and say, "Listen, we are not taking it no more." You see what happened in America? Americans decided to shift from one direction to the next, and they choose a new direction. The Caribbean can do the very same thing. The Bahamas can choose a new direction. Jamaica can choose a new direction if the direction they feel they're going in is not a good one. And so, but we have to now encourage the citizenry to speak with one voice, to unite and say, listen, this is what we want for our country.
Yeah. Very well said. He said the Bahamas Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis announced on Wednesday that Clayton Fernando was stepping down, noting that he faces no charges in the case, but that the police department needs a change. And that's leadership right there. I have to commend him for that. I don't know if it's all real, but anyway, I suspect it's a lot of pressure he's getting as well. We are taking
Not,
important steps to
not,
restore
pre-
trust and
not pressure.
accountability. Huh?
He had enough pressure because the opposition was pressuring him. He was getting pressures from the citizenry, and they were calling for the resignation of the commissioner of police because there were too many instances of mishap and under his watch, and so the prime minister was then forced to move and act.
But you see, you said something that the opposition was pressuring. What is in terms of your makeup? How many MPs make up the opposition? What's the proportion like?
I think we have a total of 39 seats, and I think five of them are opposition.
Mhm.
Five is opposition, and the rest is government. Barbados have a whole different situation. 100% government, no opposition.
Well, we
Uh,
now have one. We have one person that stepped over. Yeah.
oh, you
So
had one person stepped over. Oh, wow, you got
yeah.
one.
Stop laughing.
You got one.
But your opposition is your voice. I mean, it's five of you, but that makes a difference because then you will also have, senators and so on, opposition senators and so on, and all of you, I guess, were a united voice calling for this for the commission of police to step down.
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm not in the House of Assembly, but I'm an independent voice calling, and I call and I make my points heard nationally and internationally, and so, if I had 1 cent or 2 cents to add to that, I probably did, but. It's a unified voice in saying that listen, we need change in the Caribbean, and so, the the thing about Caribbean people is we know what we need to do. The problem is that we get so hooked on parties and personalities that we're blindsided into what we really need in leadership.
Yeah.
We need to focus more on leadership than parties and personalities. And so,
Can you break that down some more and say it slowly? Because I think that is that, because we like, this is what we do, what we've been doing, and we've been following America with this. If the person is a good speaker, then we believe that that person can lead. If the
yeah,
person speaks well, right, they can sway you, and they're good with words. Those are the people that we choose to lead us, Dr. Stewart. So can you say that a little slow and break that down for us?
but also too, I mean, when you want, if you want to build a house,
Mm,
if I could speak well, that doesn't necessarily mean I could build a house. I need an engineer, I need construction workers, I need a carpenter, I need an electrician. But the man or the who is talking who don't can't do any of those always get the job. And so, is that we are always blindsided. In the Bahamas we've had doctors and lawyers running our countries for the last 50 years. And the problem is
mm,
that, you know, because you could remember a case or you could cite a case doesn't necessarily mean you know how to build a nation. Or because you can give an injection doesn't necessarily mean you know how to build a country. But the greatest hoax that we have faced in the Caribbean is that doctors and lawyers are the smartest thing in the world. While so they may be good in their discipline, they may be good at what they do. Running a country is a total different animal altogether because you gotta. What I talked about is social engineering. You gotta understand behavioral science. You gotta
mhm,
understand what it is to deal with individual and bringing people together for one
mhm,
common goal. And so it's more than just what we make it out to be because you have actual human beings who need leadership and who needs training. And then sometimes you have a lot of faulty human beings that could be re-engineered. Some can be re-engineered, but some can be re-engineered. And so when you're dealing with building a country, you got to deal
yeah.
with the core. The core is people. You got to make sure that you strengthen your people. Then you got to understand all of the parameters of how do you make sure that you can make the resources of the nation be beneficial to the people. The problem is that we somehow follow the colonial masters and their methodology of running government, where everything was centralized, and so we end up in what I call dissentophobia, where anybody who comes against me is the enemy. If your voice is dissent, if you decide to not agree with me, then you are the enemy. Somebody may have a different point of view as to how to govern, how to administer, how to do things, but in our systems of government, if you do that, then you are the enemy. So it's a coin I phrase called the centrophobia. And so we cannot get bogged down into that because that is the methodology that the colonial masters used, where they had centralized power and they used that centralized power to whip the people into shape. But now we talk about free, independent countries. We talk about independence. What is true freedom? How do we reach this true freedom? And it takes leadership to now lead these people into true freedom, where their success is guaranteed not by my allegiance to a political party, but by meritocracy, by what I can bring to the table, what I'm adding. Can I add value to the country, and how did the country add value back to us? And so it's a give and take when it comes. It's called what you call a symbiotic relationship with a country, but it takes leadership to understand how to make that happen. But I think
Mhm.
I think what happened is that some of the leaders that we've had a narrow-minded view on what governing is. I'm a lawyer and I could write a legislation or I could debate in parliament, but I don't know how necessarily to govern people But then you get caught up
Wow.
in, they get caught up in what I call the confusion of governance, where it becomes all about me now. How do I empower myself now? And so
Hold a minute there, Dr. Stewart. You have said something there that is just so powerful. You said that we've elected lawyers, and these lawyers, they know how to write a piece of legislation, they know how to make laws, but they don't know necessarily how to govern people, how to manage people, how to manage a situation. And I've seen this over and over. Let me ask um the audience, because I want it to sink in. I know you got to go soon, but this is so good. This is so good. Somebody says, are there academic classes on governance that aspiring politicians can take? A degree in political science or law doesn't guarantee nor predict leadership potential. And I think this is what this is what I think is happening to us in the region. We keep electing the same types of people with the same skill sets all the time, and we expect a different result. Isn't that interesting? Let me hear somebody say we need some of them to be psychologists. um I wanted anybody has any thoughts, any other thoughts? Do you agree or disagree with Dr. Stewart about the type of persons that not having the right skill set to be able to manage people, govern people? Because the nation is the people, right? But go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry. Yeah.
Well, Marcia, what I've learned over the last 10 years and my studies with the correlation between African and Caribbean nations, and when you look at the rise of the freedom fighter, from Julius Nyerere to Nelson Mandela was a different kettle of fish. But so all of the African leaders, one of the issues that they had, and Caribbean leaders from John Compton to Sir Lyndon Pinland to Forbes Burnham, one of the issues that most of them had was that they were able to fight for freedom and independence. And
Mm-hmm.
once they gained their independence, that's where everything stopped, because they never had a long-term vision for the countries, just to get rid of the colonial masters. The vision
Ah.
stopped. The vision stopped right where the colonial masters ended,
You're
and
so right, because
that was
that when you begin to study the Caribbean, I did the movie on Errol Barrow, and I was looking at the leaders, and I realized that nothing happened after that. Really, everything that they've done, it's like we're stuck in a time bomb.
yeah.
But go ahead, please.
See, the problem most of them had, and I studied, and my book is being should be released in another month, on when the freedom fighters become the slave masters. And it dives into all of the Caribbean nations and all of the African nations, from Idi Amin to Robert Mugabe and all of these leaders. The trouble they all faced was that they had a desire and a zeal to liberate the people.
Mm-hmm.
After the liberation, there was no vision for the next step. But when you look at today's date with Paul Kagame in Uganda, he has Vision 2020, Vision 2025, Vision 2050. So he has a
Mm-hmm.
long-term vision for his country, and he's now transforming his whole nation. And so Paul Kagame is now taking his country into a whole new different dispensation. Even in Botswana, they're doing the very same thing with long-term vision. So for most of the Caribbean and African nations, the vision stopped right where the colonial masters ended. And that was the major trouble, because they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to govern. They didn't know anything about govern. They didn't know anything about leadership. And then they fall right back into the same methodology of the colonial masters. It was
Mm-hmm.
all about greed. It's all about what we can get, how we can take, and how we can suppress the people to keep the leadership. And so they follow the same truth. So the suppression. So when you look at even Julius Nyerere and all of these great leaders who we love, you see some of their methodologies were mimicking the colonial masters of suppression, the xenophobia, suppressing the masses. Anybody who stand up against them, authoritarian rulership, one party system. So they all moved into that same arena, and they became the very same thing that they fought against. the freedom fighters became the slave masters all over again.
Yes, because we can see what is happening here in Barbados, where they're trying to make us a one party state. No, this whole thing about vision, because that's something, I lead a couple organizations, etc. And a vision is so important, and having a vision is so important, but also in communicating the vision to the people that you are leading. And I find that is something that our leaders, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what they're doing. And so I see what you're saying in terms of having certain skills, managing people, governing people, knowing how some of our leaders, Dr. Stewart, that are leading us have never completed anything but, they completed university. They have never started a business from scratch. Do you know what I'm saying? Or do you think that those kind of skills are important?
What we need in the Caribbean is vision. And what leaders like Lee Kuan Yew did was he brought a vision for his country.
What you mean when you say a vision? Explain, because I want to break it down. Guys, jump in the conversation in the comment section, please. We're reading the comment section. Yeah.
But remember now, Lee Kuan Yew became prime minister in 1965 under the People's Action Party, the PAP, and they broke away from the British. They went under Malaysia, and they became independent. And everybody thought that Singapore was going to collapse because it's a little small piece on the same landmass as Malaysia. Singapore decided that Lee Kuan Yew decided that, listen, he's going to invest in his people, and they're going to have a zero tolerance to corruption, but they're going to have a long-term plan. And so they put in so much different systems in place. And right now, Singapore is perhaps one of the most productive countries on the planet. And so even in terms of what they have, something called forced savings. He created with something called forced savings, where every citizen of Singapore retires with money because the government puts up a portion and the people puts up a portion, and it's put in an account that they cannot touch, so that when you retire, you automatically have money. Now, we have something called national insurance in the Bahamas, but we can't get it now because the government spent all the money on whatever they want to spend the money on.
The same thing in Barbados. The same thing.
So in Trinidad, the government cannot touch the money because the money belongs to the people. Now, Lee Kuan Yew made provisions for the people to take portions of the money to buy homes and to buy stocks and to invest it into anything that can grow their money. But they cannot take their money out to go buy this and buy clothes. But also too, in the long term, though, what they did was any company that came into Singapore, they took the national insurance money and they invested it so that when Hewlett Packard came to Singapore, they had shares in Hewlett Packard and they had shares in all of the companies, so that the returns from the dividends were more than their gross domestic product. So they were yielding resources. So when you look at the Bahamas, we have $3 billion projects on one island. And so what we need to do is, instead of us investing in those projects, we gave away land, we gave away duty-free concessions without buying in on those projects. So when the yield comes in, when the casino taxes comes in at $200 million profit, we get nothing from that. Because we didn't invest in it. And so Lee Kuan Yew did the exact opposite. He made sure that the state invested into everything that comes in, so that when the 50-50 split, they make money, the government makes money. And so
Dr. Stewart, it seems to me that some of our politicians, which is what I was saying, they have never started anything from the ground. They don't know how to build anything from the ground up. They don't start a business. They don't, because that's a business decision. So to have that is a vision for the country, but you have to have a certain a business mindset to be able to come up with that kind of, put that kind of policy in place.
Yeah, so even with the Caribbean, one of the issues that the Caribbean face every year is hurricane. And so we know that at some point, somebody's going to get hit with hurricane this year. But we don't have a consolidated approach through CARICOM where we have supplies waiting in hand to be able to help any country that is ravaged. So if Barbados is ravaged next this year, right, we should have had supplies store in one of the islands so that in the event there's a hurricane, we could immediately ship plywood, shingles, roofing supplies to be able to fix homes. I mean, we could put a portion, perhaps 1% of everybody's total budget, to be able to put a storehouse together to be able to fix these things, to deal with these things. In addition to that, when you look at food security, the Bahamas import $1.6 billion, 1.86 billion dollars worth of food every year, and some of the food ain't good. And so we prefer getting more organic food that is grown in the Caribbean. But we have no logistics to be able to ship food from St. Lucia to the Bahamas or from Jamaica to the Bahamas. I was in Cuba the other day, and Cuba had to bring water in from Europe. By the time it's the water get from Europe to Cuba, it's flat. And so the Caribbean could have been able to meet that demand. And so, but we have no national or no regional approach to being able to deal with the problems that face the Caribbean. And so for us, though, moving forward, that when CARICOM sits down, they need, I don't know what they do at these meetings. I swear I don't know what they do at the meeting. But it seems as if there is no method to the madness. We need to be able to say, listen, this is how we're going to deal with some of the major issues that affect us. Hurricanes, we go around the world talking about climate crisis, climate crisis, climate crisis. Just buy some plywood and sheetrock and some shingles and store them. Don't tell me about climate crisis. We know it coming. Every year for the last 1,000 years, we had hurricane, and we could have hurricane for the next 1,000 years. So ain't nothing we could do to stop it or change it. So let's prepare for it. And so we have to be able to put these things in place to be able to deal with these situations. And so there's a lot of cross pollinations that we could do between different countries. Jamaica has products that could come into the Bahamas. The Bahamas has expertise in tourism that we could lend to the rest of the Caribbean. And St. Lucia may have crops that they could be able to bring to. And so there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot of synergies. There's a lot of cross pollination we can do. But it just takes leadership.
Oh man, I really hope he doesn't drop out again because this is going so good, isn't
Whoever
it?
is.
Okay, we got you're back. You're back. I was just saying,
Yeah,
but I
you can
don't
hear me.
want you to drop out. This
Yeah,
is going so good. You stay
yeah.
right there. This is good. This is good stuff. Continue what you were saying, please.
So so whichever prime minister is in charge of CARICOM should should take the approach of how do we use our synergies, look at which strength that each island has, and see how that we can create the shipping lanes and the synergies to be able to bring products across our borders. And so that's what we need in the region. And so when you look at us now, we're bringing everything from America. The quality of food is not good. They're GMO infested and so on. And and so we cannot continuously ingest that because the Caribbean is now hit with higher cancer rate, hypertension and diabetes. And so definitely the food we're eating is not good. So let's scrap where we're buying our food from, and let's create a regional block where we can get our food from the region and we can grow more crops in the Caribbean and be able to feed each other.
Yeah. I wanna, as you were speaking, sir, Dr. Stewart, I was thinking about um the whole thing about a manifesto. And again, I want the people who are on to join in the conversation because we want to unlearn some things tonight. Um, I think a lot of our politicians, they mistake a vision for the country for a manifesto. Do you see what I'm saying? Because the
Yeah.
manifesto, they use the manifesto to win. They're using the money. You see what I'm trying to say? They're
Yes.
using the
Yes.
manifesto. They're using the manifesto to win, but the manifesto is not necessarily the vision for the country. What are your thoughts about that?
One of the problems that we face in the Caribbean is we don't have a continuity of government as well too, because we change governments, and when a government is changed, then the policies are changed, and so there is no consistency. So if you have a national plan for education and the next government doesn't buy in and they scrap that and comes in, so because there is no continuity, no consistency, you will have a lot of gaps in vision and gaps in growth. We are not
Mm-hmm.
growing the way we need to grow is because we don't have people who understand that we need a national
Mm-hmm.
plan for each individual country, but then also a national plan for the Caribbean at large. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there are there are systems in place. We have Lome Convention, Lome 1, Lome 2. Lome allows us to be able to export products into Africa and Asia and the Pacific states. So it's between Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific states, right? But then there's also a regional plan between the Caribbean and Central and South America. So there's trade agreements. Then we also have the trade agreement between the Caribbean and America, the Caribbean Basin Initiative that was signed in 1982 by Ronald Reagan. So
Mm-hmm.
all these initiatives, but we have nothing to produce. I mean, I know Jamaica does some bauxites, they may do some exports and some cement, but there's much more that we can do. And so we need to now find out how do we now look to the strengths that we have in our region, and how do we maximize those strengths. But how do we be able to cross pollinate our resources to be able to benefit each other individual countries? And then once we do that, how do now each countries can make each other rich? And so because interregional trade is very, very big, because most of our trade comes from the United States. And but if we can trade between the Bahamas and Jamaica, St. Lucia and Guyana, and so on, and have interregional trade, it'll be better for us because we have better quality products,
Yes,
particularly
yes.
agricultural products, particularly agricultural products.
One of the things I was thinking, as you were speaking, during COVID. Regardless of what we think of COVID and how it was, it came into being, etc. I thought, Dr. Stewart, that COVID was a time that we could, for the first time, truly be Caribbean, truly be Barbadian, truly be Jamaican without all of that influence. I was actually happy at one point where nobody was coming in here, and I was saying, whoa, I was saying to people, man, this is an opportunity for us to work together on and build our country. And I remember I got so excited of the possibility. And I knew that was a time I was going to, I will help this government, they want to get into agriculture. I'll try to get my community, their kitchen gardens going, and those kind of things. And as soon as and you would hear the governments, and they were working together. They were talking to each other. You could feel that something was going to happen, right? I
Yes.
don't know if it was in the Bahamas too. And as soon as the place opened up, they dropped all of those things and went back traveling and begging for grants and begging for money and begging. It happened in the Bahamas too.
It happened in the Bahamas. I tell you, there's no difference. If you wake up in the Bahamas or you wake up in Barbados and St. Lucia, it's the same kind, same problems, same situation, same scenarios. It seems as if all of us repeat the same script. It's like we're reading the same script in the same playbook. But we need to wake up now and change the playbook. We need to change the script. And this is where leadership comes in. We need a better Caribbean. We need better leaders. We need better leadership. And so we need to be able to produce more. And, there's no reason why Guyana, which is our Caribbean sister, sells more plywood to China than anybody else, when Barbados or St. Lucia needs plywood to build products, and so but can't get it from Guyana. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to understand. And so now Guyana is now the fastest growing country in the Caribbean. One, but Guyana has more oil now than Kuwait. And so now Guyana, we have to figure out how do we now get cheaper oil in Barbados and the Bahamas. So right now, fuel in the Bahamas is $7, $6 a gallon. And so we need to be able to say, listen, Guyana, we need some of that fuel. And we could put refineries in the Bahamas to be able to refine some of that oil so that we can get oil prices down to $1 per gallon in the
Yeah.
Bahamas and Barbados. And so, Guyana is poised to make almost $100 billion next year. And so we got to figure out how do we now, as a Caribbean region, tap into our sister Caribbean country and be able to benefit from the resources that she's producing. And so we can't allow. I mean, it's negotiation, it's leadership, but we have to say to our countries that we need to be able to get access to some of that cheap oil that Guyana is now producing. And because everything is run on energy, the cost of living in the Bahamas is so high, it is outrageous. How do we bring the cost down?
Yeah.
Energy price. So if we could bring the energy cost down, we can do that. And Guyana has enough oil to feed the entire Caribbean for the next 100 years.
Wow. Can you imagine that? We are blessed. Now, this is a question here. It says, Mr. Stewart, what's your suggestion for getting all of our collective ideas to our leaders and getting them enacted? That seems to be the problem. The citizens being heard by the leaders, because there have been so much great ideas. And you're going to answer it. I'm not going to be on the screen, but I'm going to hear you. Okay, so just answer Liana, please.
Well, I think what we need to do, Marcia, is, the problem is that we have no access to the CARICOM heads of government meeting. When they meet, those meetings are closed, and so that's normally the problem. And we don't know what is discussed in those meetings or how the communication goes in those meetings. And so we need to figure out a way how do we penetrate those meetings by putting together a white paper, a green paper, or even, like you said, a manifesto, and say, this is from the citizens of the Caribbean. This is what we want to see in oil, in agriculture, in healthcare, and so on. But it takes the citizen, it takes us to now take the next step to say, listen, CARICOM leaders, this is how we want to see our country, and this is what we want for the future of our country for the next 25 years. So, I mean, we could collectively, Marcia, you could spearhead that. I know I'm busy, so you could spearhead that, putting together a collective working group to be able to put ideas together as to what the Caribbean needs and how do we now present that to the CARICOM heads of government. So let me know what you think. I think it'll be a wonderful idea, but I think it takes somebody to spearhead that. And Marcia, you'll be the perfect person to do that.
Listen, I think I'm in so much agreement with you that, I mean, because on this show, and you're coming out with a book that I can't wait to read. And there's so many ideas that have come out, have been suggested, and it feels like it's just going in the wind. I believe that the answers to what's happening, what's plaguing the Caribbean, it lies in us. I keep saying that, Dr. Stewart, that we are enough. We are enough, and whether, I mean, I think it's not just me, but it's a group of people that we need to take this thing by the reins, and so you were saying to put a working group together. That's something that we have tried it on different issues. We tried it with the cybercrime bill, as you saw here, and it was the citizens.
Yes, and so we were able to advocate and to address that cybercrime bill. I'm not sure what the MIA administration has concluded on that.
It's on hold right now, only because of the citizens.
Wonderful, and so we advocated against that cybercrime bill, and so I'm happy that, and so it takes. You remember we were advocating against the LGBT community flags in the Caribbean, and I sent a letter to the U.S. Congress, and they banned it, and in all countries and around the world.
Yes.
And so it takes us to just put pen to paper, and say, listen, this is what we want. But the problem is that the leaders think that everything is fine because the citizens ain't saying nothing. If you ain't saying nothing, they think you're okay. And so it's time that you say that, listen, we are not okay, and this is what we want, and this is how we want the Caribbean to look over the next 25 years. This is our broad vision. And there are shining examples. I say Botswana, Uganda. Paul Kagame is doing a wonderful job down there. After taking over from a civil war and a massacre and genocide, 800,000 people being killed. He was able to transform his country now, the fastest growing country in Africa, the cleanest country in Africa. And so, we could learn from a lot of examples around the world. We could learn from Lee Kuan Yew, who was one of the brightest minds that ever lived. And so
we see what's happening in Burkina Faso. Is a young leader,
Yes.
36 years old.
I mean, Abraham Toure, he's doing a wonderful job in Burkina Faso. And what he did was, he was able to break free of the shackles of the French.
Yeah, I don't know if Dave can put up his picture. Toure's picture.
Yeah, so he's doing a wonderful job down there because he's able to break free of the shackles because of course France controlled Africa and they were strangling Africa for the longest. And a lot of the African countries are now being liberated. Even though they were independent, they were not liberated from the French, because remember, France still printed all of their currencies, and France still held all of their foreign reserves, and France was controlling all their natural resources. And they were buying them pennies on the dollar. And so they say, listen, we're tired of that. If you buy in our product, you got to buy it at market value now. And so, Emmanuel Macron is now upset and trying to strangle some of the French countries, African countries, but they're standing up. And so, but that's what we need. We need new leaders, young leaders who aren't afraid to take the blows, but who say, this is what we want and this is how we want our country.
Yeah, we need the Tories. The thing is that we sit and we watch these people and we say, "Oh, great they are," but then we are not. That's the thing. As I was saying at the beginning of the show, part of our anthem, Dr. Stewart said, it says we write our names on history's page with expectations great. And I was saying to us that each of us, we can be history makers. We can decide what is it we're going to be known for. When we die, what will we be known for? And I believe, Dr. Stewart, as you do, that the answer is in us. Each of us, we are here right now in the Caribbean right now. We are it. We are it. Whatever it is the Caribbean is right now, we contributed to what it is, and we can change it. I believe that we can do it, and we can do it together. And it's not cliche. I believe it can happen.
We live in the best part of the world. The Caribbean region is the best spot on the planet. I've been all over the world. I've been to every continent, and I've seen the world, but no place like the Caribbean. There's no
Yeah.
place like the Caribbean.
But
And
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm
and
sorry.
so we have to cherish that. God put us in this region for a reason, and we cannot allow our countries to be run down by drugs and guns and criminality. We got to invest more in education. We got to make sure that we produce the best citizens. And so we got to put more into our people, and we got to expect more. And so, I have great expectations for the next leaders that are rising up throughout the Caribbean. And we got to do it. We got to make it happen. And we cannot sit idly by and just allow a few politicians who don't know their right hand from their left hand to lead us down into an abyss. We got to demand more.
But as you are, because I know I had you on here for way past your time, but this has been going good. I didn't see my next guest, but as yet, I know he was having some trouble getting home. But I wanted to bring us to, without getting into American politics. I'm seeing African countries and Caribbean countries are, some people, for good reasons, are worried because we're not going to get any more aid. I see people are concerned that we're not going to get any, we're cut off. Africa cut off, Caribbean cut off, and as I listen to you, it seems like you're saying that this is an opportunity, like Burkina Faso. This leader, what he did, he basically cut off the aid that they were getting from France. He cut off the ties, then the colonial ties, and decide, listen, let us try on our own. Now we have a situation where someone is in the White House and said, we're cutting you off. And then, some people are worried about that. Do you see this as an opportunity for the Caribbean, or should the Caribbean really be worried about this aid and this support that we will no longer get? What are your thoughts, without going too much in the political, in the American politics?
I've been on public record, um, talking about our prime minister running around the world looking for free money, free aid. My position is, if we're going to build our country, let's build our country with our hands. Stop trying to get something free for somebody. And so we talking about climate change and carbon credits and free money. There's no free money. Nobody's going to give us anything free. And we have to stop looking for free things. And that's the psychological problem that we face in the Caribbean now, in Africa. And I'm glad that Abraham Toure and the rest of those leaders are saying that, listen, we don't want no aid. Why should Africa look for aid when Africa is the richest continent on the planet? They have rare earth material, which is the most expensive material in the world, only found in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Diamonds and gold, only found in Africa. And so Why are you looking for aid when you got everything there? You know, why are we looking for aid when we have everything here? We have what we need. We just have to make sure that our people are productive. We're producing a bunch of lazy people in the Caribbean, people who don't want to work, and we're looking for we go to exploit countries that produce low minimum wage workers, and so that's what we do. But we need to tell our citizens to listen. If our country is to be great, we all got to work. We all got to build it. We ain't got to look to America for no aid. We got to look to America for opportunities, but not aid. And so America is going to prosper, and America, we are in the orbit of America in the Caribbean. And as America prosper, we will prosper. But we just have to position ourselves to be able to benefit from the prosperity of America by making sure that we could be a part of the market, making sure to be a part of stock markets, making sure that we could be a part of manufacturing and so on. We could position ourselves. Nothing stops anyone from the Caribbean of starting a company in America. To start a company in the USA costs $135. $135, and you could be a part of the American system. The problem is that we lazy and we want somebody to do something for us, and that's not how it works. Most of the countries that are benefiting from America are foreign countries, are European countries. We look at the leaders of Google and the leaders of all these countries. They are foreigners. All of them are foreigners, but they go into America and they benefit. Why can't the Caribbean do the same? Why can't we do the same? And so we just have to take advantage of the position, place ourselves in the way of the wave, and as the wave comes of prosperity, we all benefit.
Yeah, yeah. But there seems to be a real fear. There's a fear that our leaders have, and I believe that it's a fear that we have grown up with as Caribbean people, because we were so dependent on the colonizer. We were, as you said, after independence, we just didn't know. We still didn't know how to be on our own. You
Mhm.
know, and we look at this man here on the screen, and that's why we are amazed at him. He's 36, and probably that's why he could take all of these risks, but he doesn't have the fear of failure. And I think a lot of our leaders, if we fear that we're going to fail if we lose our dependency on our colonizers.
But
What are your thoughts?
I think also the greatest thing that we need to understand that if you are in government or a leader, it's not about you, it's about the people. And I think we lose sight because we think that it's about us. We want to get enrich ourselves. We want it for ourselves. We want it for our family. We want it for our friends and our cronies, but it's about for the people. We got to make sure that every citizen benefits and every citizen prospers. And so that's where we lose sight of the whole big picture, and that's why we fail. That's why we failed in Africa. That's why we're failing in the Caribbean. I mean, when you dissect all of the Caribbean countries and you see the problems they faced from independence to now, it was all about me, 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 and what I can get for myself. And so it's never about you, it's never about you. It's about always about the people. And that's what we cannot lose sight of. And we got to always remind ourselves that, listen, as leaders, it's about making sure that we could build for the people. So,
Yes.
Mafia, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I know. My goodness, this is cool. I love this. Somebody said Caribbean leaders are due to meet in Barbados in February. Good time to prepare our expectations and present at the CARICOM meeting.
Oh,
We can
wonderful.
even, I mean, we could start on crime. We could tackle use one thing. You know.
Well, start a working group, Marcia. If you can get a group of people together, and then we can begin to put a dialogue together and put a working group and put a document together to present to the CARICOM heads of government meeting so that we can let them know what we want for our country in crime. But also to I think self being able to feed ourselves in our countries. We gotta work our land
Mm,
better, and we are not working our land in the Caribbean. I mean, when we were slaves, our land worked. We produce crops in our land. We are no longer slaves, and the crops dying. So we got to
mhm.
fix that. We got to fix that. And
Yeah.
so we still have to eat as production goes on, as tourism boom, as hotels grow. The people still got to eat. So as they come in, who's feeding those people? And so we got to make sure grow crops in our region so that we could feed the people, so that we can be able to keep the money in our own homes.
Yes, yes, yes. Listen, you have to come back to us And, this has been really, really rich and enlightening. And, I think this is great. We were talking about corruption and dealing with leadership. And I guess that's how we went into governance. And
Yes.
I think that is really wonderful. We didn't get to touch on immigration situation, but I have two persons in the diaspora coming on now that will be dealing with that. Thank you so much, Dr. Stewart, for joining us and for just being so open and candid with us this evening. It's been quite enlightening.
Thank you so much, Marcia. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Yes, sir. God bless.
God
We'll
bless.
be calling on you again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Oh, folks, oh my goodness, that has been awesome. That section there, I think that the people who are planning to be a politician, you want to run for office, or you think you want to be the next prime minister, that's a good session to sit down and listen to dissect it. I think that was really very good. I think so. What do you all think about that? What did you all learn from it? Before we go to the next segment, I see my guests are in. Somebody said it was refreshing and enlightening. De Vere says it was excellent points, but our challenge is to get the various parties or persons committed to engage in a meaningful discourse. So I think, yes, a good point. And so what came out of this is that we probably need to work in the Caribbean as a Caribbean group and put together as he said, some as a working group, and we send stuff to CARICOM and make it public as well. Put it in the public that this is what we have come up with, so that it keeps them accountable. Put it in the media, probably use the media. Yeah, I'm looking doing gene therapy. What is that? It's the Lord that making me look young. Excellent presentation. Yes, I think this one is worth sitting down and listening to again. I think this yes, gravity. I agree. It's one, we're gonna cut it out and put it there. I think it's a great, it's one, yes. And I want to, there were some of our leaders that had vision for the country after independence. When you look at Errol Barrow, right? The Right Honorable Errol Barrow, and you look at the list of things that man has done. In his lifetime, you would think it was done by 10 persons. Think about it. What he was able to do in the 3 terms that he was in as prime minister, what he was able to accomplish, it looks like 10 persons accomplished it, because he had vision. And that's why some of even the other Caribbean leaders, were saying that he should lead the Caribbean. That's a fact. Michael Manley and all of them looked up to Errol Barrow, they did. So we haven't had that kind of vision for the country since Errol Barrow. And that is what we're looking for. And I think people are going to gravitate towards vision, a vision that they can articulate. They want to be able to say it. And just before my guests come, because I think I just want to close with this in the point about vision. If you're leading a group of people and they don't know what the vision is, trust me, you will not be accomplishing anything. You can't lead a group of people and they don't know what the vision is. They have to know what it is. And I remember going to a church in Harlem, and one of the things that they used to do every Sunday morning, we actually had, as the congregants, had to repeat the vision. The vision of Harlem Tabernacle is, and we stood up in the church and repeated the vision. The people have to believe it. They have to believe that it can happen. That's how you lead. But as we say, we have people who are leading, then some of them have never built anything from the ground up. Some of them, the only thing that they've accomplished is completing their education, which is not bad because it's good training. But you need some more, you need more experience, man. You know, we want to know you failed, you did something and you failed. And then you try again and you try all 3 times till you got it right. We want to know that you're somebody who you can troubleshoot. Things come at you. We want to know you know how to communicate, how to move people, how to get people to do. Not to manipulate people, not to use speech to manipulate people, but how to get them to get up and work. That is true leadership, right? Yeah. All right, but let's go into, we're going to go right into this issue of immigration. And just before we go into it, there are 2 things I want to do. Dave, there is a little video that came in from St. Lucia, and it kind of put a little it's a little funny. Some people might not find it funny. Might not find it funny, but it was a little funny. It gives us a little laughter of the situation. So we're looking at the immigration policies of the Trump administration in the United States of America. And how does this affect us in the Caribbean region? Is this something that we should be concerned about? So here, you know, Caribbean people, we make a joke out of everything. So now listen to these here from St. Lucia.
Softly and tenderly,
St. Lucia is calling,
calling for you, not for me. If you in USA, please, darling, come home. Come home, illegals, come home.
And let's go together.
Come home, come home. If you illegal, come home.
Amen, amen. Can I?
You want food?
I'm the fool.
Bring us that food.
Better come home now.
Bring us that food.
Trump just made a flashing plan. Let me tell you, flashing plan. So all you trumpers and trumpets, come home. Come home.
Bring.
Gaza.
Let me tell you nothing. Let me tell you.
Hello.
Hey, pack the bags.
Let me tell you, he's coming.
He's coming.
Let me tell you, the time is here.
It's here.
Let me tell you, when we talk about the coming, we're not talking about Jesus Christ.
That's right.
We're talking about immigration.
That's what we're talking about. Immigration is coming for you.
If you're illegal,
that's right. Come home.
Let me tell you,
come
if you
home.
know you did not go to pay your taxes, come home.
Come
all right.
home.
You know your parents sick and you couldn't come and see them for the past few years. Now is the time to come home. All right.
Come
you
home.
have a chance to live with your clothes. Don't let them catch you in the street.
Don't let them do that.
They will send you just the
Don't
bag you
let
have
them do you
and
that.
the shoes on your feet.
Don't let them do
Come
that.
home.
Come home.
All right. He
Come
won.
home. That's right.
Somebody say if I was not in the Navy, I would be in the next flight.
Well, let me tell you, Trump said he has enough soldiers. He's sending you home.
He's sending you home. Trust me. If you did not fight in the last war, come home.
That's right. That's right. Just so you want to become a veteran of them. Just fight, come home.
Imagine you have one leg and they realize you're illegal. You're going home.
That's right. Imagine
without
your mother on a hospital bed.
And she didn't vote for Donald. And you're going home instead. You know?
Come home. We need you to come home.
All right.
You gotta come home.
Somebody said, caught waiting for them on the airport.
That's right. If you know you didn't pay the sofa,
come home. I'll pay it.
That's right.
Let me tell you, as a matter of fact, for those of you who want to come home and you're afraid because you're owing people and you run away, we have an amnesty. Come home.
That's right.
We'll talk to the people.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to be putting some money towards a container. You could stay in the container temporarily.
Yeah, there you go.
But come home.
We'll put 2 windows.
That's right.
One on the left, one on the right. Yes.
Come
Take
home.
it how you all want, all right?
Come home.
Because things are gonna get ugly. Imagine you coming down. You used to take photos with your little Gucci. Well,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Gussy.
Your
Gussy.
Your Dolce no Gabbana.
No Gabbana. Imagine you used to take photos with that, and but Jake, they leave that in New York.
That's right. That's right.
Remember we're talking about Brooklyn? They're using EC there.
That's right.
That's changing just now.
Yeah, let me tell you.
They will flush you.
They will flush you all out.
Y'all thought they made the movie Purge by chance. Come home.
Come home. Trump is about to treat you like a colon cleanser. Come home.
Come home.
Come home. Let me tell you, some of y'all living in New York City for the longest while, you're still calling it Nike. NYC.
Yeah.
Come home. Come home.
We talked to y'all about
that is how some people have chosen to deal with it. Sometimes Caribbean people have a way. Well, people on the whole, when things are painful, they make jokes about them. They do all kinds of different things, right? But I saw it at first. I was like, but then it got funny, and I laughed at it. But it's a serious issue, and it is serious because I know that in Jamaica today there were 52 persons that were deported today. And as somebody said, really and truly, we're talking about these deportation, but they happen almost monthly. Right now in Barbados, actually, they said that since November, this is before Trump came in. Let that sink in. There were 52 persons that were scheduled to be deported to Barbados. These are people that have committed crimes to be deported to Barbados. So that had nothing to do with Trump, so that people understand, because we got to clarify some things as well, because sometimes we're lumping everything. But this article from Jamaica Gleaner said that flight with the first set of Jamaican deportees under the U.S. President Donald J. Trump administration landed at the Norman Manley International Airport in Kingston today. Some are now being processed and released to families, while others into the custody of police. And I was telling Dave, and I don't know if Dave could see the other article, the bigger article, but I was reading that in Jamaica today, actually, what happened when the police was there to take a lot of them. There were people who committed murders and went to the U.S., and they were now coming back, and the police was there to take them. There was one man who committed sexual offenses on minors 3 different times. And he was now coming home. So they had, there were people there who were not, did not have a criminal record, but they had quite a few. And so we've got to look at both sides of this and to seriously ask, are we prepared for what is happening? And to also realize that this is something that happens all the time. That people are deported all the time. Obviously, it's going to be a bit more now. Okay, yeah, yeah. So let's. But we have with us tonight, Sunshine Leon Williams, is with us, and we're going to invite him in the studio now. And we also have Michelle Daniel, and Sunshine Leon Williams is from New York, and he is how old are you now, sir? I can ask him that. He's my good friend.
I'm 83.
83. I met him when he was 80. Met him online, and he is now 83. 83. I like to turn it backwards. I say you're 38. Okay.
That's exactly. I feel like 38.
I love it. I love it. And we have with us the lovely Michelle Daniel with us. And Michelle, we're so happy to have you. Michelle worked with us on that working group that put together the when we went to Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. Michelle played an important role in that, where she went down to Washington and helped to prepare those delegates. And Michelle, we are so grateful for that. You're trained in policy, etc., and it's so good to know you could give back your skills to Barbados. We're happy to have you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good night, Barbados.
Yes, wonderful. Now tonight we're gonna have fire. We're gonna have some sparks flying because both Michelle and Sunshine, they are on the opposite side of this issue. So is I could see everybody in the comment section. But we're gonna have a good friendly debate and respectfully share our thoughts and our views on this particular issue. So should I let youth go first and allow Sunshine to go first, or the lady should go first? Sunshine.
It's up to you.
Well, I'm gonna let the lady go first. So Michelle, my first question to you, ma'am, is what are your views on the policy, the immigration policy, and the way it is being rolled out in the U.S. and at the moment? So we just want to speak generally about that, and then we're going to bring it into the Caribbean, right? So, what are your thoughts about that?
I can speak from a personal aspect. I was born in Barbados. My father was the first to migrate to the U.S., and he sent for me. So I understand what immigration does to the Caribbean and what does to families. Families at home depend on then send things home, depend on support. So immigration for the Caribbean is going to be affected. Now, I don't agree with how this situation was rolled out. Now he's taking them to the next level, put it that way. So yes, I believe in immigration. I also believe in deportation. If there is a problem, if there's a situation that you are here and you are unlawful, yes, you should be deported. But I don't believe how the past 2 weeks things words to when a 50-cent word can do the same, can give the same explanation. How I look at it is Donald Trump came in on January 20th, and it's like coming home. Everyone's at home. Everyone's in the house. Someone is, let's say, someone's on the internet. Someone's talking on the phone. Everyone's doing something. He just came in and turned the lights out. I don't agree with that one bit. That's not leadership. That's just, you're just inciting a riot at this point. If he believes that the American people is just going to sit by and allow this to happen, this is only an executive order. Executive orders are not laws. They operate like laws up to a certain point, but they are not laws. The U.S. has a immigration system. It is not perfect. It is a system where I think every administration has kicked the can or kicked the football down the road to the next administration. Sometimes things work better with one administration than it does with the other. But this is unacceptable. This is inhumane. And if you think that it was complicated during his first term, which there are about 500,000 what we call children that are missing. Children that he had something called family separation in his first administration. There are 500,000 children spread throughout the U.S. We don't know what they are, where they are, and what they're doing. That is unacceptable, and it hurts families. It does. This is not putting people together. This is not propping up anything. This is literally hurting families. And the Caribbean, they're gonna be next. And when I say they're gonna be next, economically, this is going to be a burden for the Caribbean. And when I say that, I mean, like I said, families depend on those who are working to send things home.
Remittances.
He decides that he'll cut off funding. So I don't think that anything is I don't take this lightly. I don't take this as funny. It's completely disrupting the ecosystem here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you. Let me hear from Mr. Sunshine, Leon Sunshine. How long have you been in the U.S.?
Some 35 years.
You've been in the U.S. 35 years. So I will ask you the same question. What are your thoughts on what this policy, immigration policy, and the way that it's been rolled out, sir?
Well, I disagree with everything she said because she don't have the facts. First, the missing children is during the Biden administration. And so far, ICE have been able to locate 80,000 of those children because the children were trafficked by the cartels. And what the cartels do is there sometimes kidnap these children, or some families pay the cartels to bring the children in. And when they get to the border, they let the children run to the border patrol and they disappear. And once the border patrol is distracted by that, they brings in the drugs with their rules on the other side and run into the country. Now, sometimes the cartels abandon these children in the desert. They find many dead, many of them dead. And when those that come in is handed to the NGOs, to the Catholic charities and the Lutheran charity, and then there gives these children out to organizations, sometimes don't even have the family, and then there's no accountability.
Okay.
And this is why these children is missing, because they're trying to find these children, the families celebrate the children, but the NGOs is who distribute these children around. Okay.
Okay. So that's it for the children. So let's talk about the policy.
Now, first, let me deal with case law. There's no need for the fear porn and all this, because notice that the people that are being picked up are mostly the worst of the worst: murderers, people who molest children, people who peddle drugs, guns. Now, notice that this is not a raid, it's a targeted system whereby you go on there and enforce the law targeted. They knew where these people was 2 years ago. These are people who were either convicted of a crime and was ordered to leave the country and didn't leave, or they were convicted and the sanctuary city mayors, when they do the bail reform, they let them back on the street. They were to turn them over to ICE, and they leave them over the street and decide they're not going to cooperate with ICE. But that is a violation, that alone is a violation of HUSC 138 of the immigration status. Okay, that's a violation of that law, in case you don't know. Now, let's go into, I send you a lot of things, but I know but let's go into first what the immigration law is. And Trump did not make this. This is not about President Trump. Because all the people that are being picked up now were being documented and tracked 2 years ago. He was not in office. But the Biden administration failed to deport these people. They just let them back on the street. Okay? And then these people move from state to state, like Trendy Aragua. Notice that they did that home invasion in Colorado. And he was picked up there in the Bronx, New York, just 2 days ago, where they did another home invasion and had taken over an apartment. And when the tenants had enough, them dropped the word on them and they picked them up. And he was wanted all the way in Colorado, but he ended up in New York. So they traveled from state to state, this transnational gang, gun running, sex trafficking, molesting children, and then they have another one called Los Diablos. That is the arm, that is the satellite of Trendy Agua, and their job is to go into organized retail stores and loot the stores and rob on these scooters, and then they take that contraband and themselves then. So, and then you have the MS-13. Now, all these three gangs is affiliated with the cartels. Work in co. Okay, it's an organized crime syndicate. And then the NGOs get involved because the NGOs is given an allotment from the government to look after people in need. And that happened after the Second World War for the illegal refugees. But what they do, they're now use it to a pipeline for illegal immigration because it profits them. And this is how we get all these flooded people in the country. Now, Mr. Trump told them long ago that you were getting people from the prisons, from mental institutions or whatever, and that is true. And we're getting terrorists coming in the country. So this is now a national security issue.
Okay.
Good. So because it's a national security issue, they decide now to move out all these bad criminals first, get out of the country. They're not going out of families. They're not going into places we can raid it. No, it's targeted enforcement, where we know where these people are that was to be out of the country before, but they won't send up, so we're going to get them out. If you're a terrorist, if you're a child trafficker, a child molester, you're a gun runner, you're drug running, you're doing home invasions, you got to go. So it's humane because when you remove these people, you make it safer for the residents. So when people say it's not about Trump, it's about enforcing 19118 USC 1325. That law, that if you enter the country other than in a legal port of entry, you are decided to be an illegal immigrant. You can say undocumented, it means the same thing, and you are subject to deportation, okay? Because you violate the law by entering the country without proper procedure. Now, there is Section B of that 1326. That is if you enter the country illegally and then you try to arrange a false marriage to stay in the country to avoid immigration law, then that's a felony. Okay, if you try to start a business in order to avoid and say, well, I got a business, so I can't say, no, that's also a violation because it would start while you were in the legal status. So it has strike one, have strike two. Okay, so these are the people who has been removed, have nothing to do with Trump. These laws were on the statute books long before Trump. And every president of the United States becomes the chief federal executive, and his sole duty is to protect the country from any threats, foreign and domestic. So if something becomes a threat, a national security issue, he have to act to remove that security threat from the country. These people they're removing are security threat. They're getting terrorists.
Well, point taken, Sunshine. We're going to come back to you. So let me go now to back to Michelle and Michelle. What's your response? So we're gonna and after we respond to each other, then we're going to talk about the Caribbean. What's your response to what Sunshine has said?
My response is yes, there are people who do unlawful things and they need to be deported. But I'm concerned about those who haven't. Dr. Donald Trump has talked about we're only picking up unlawful criminals. But he has gone to churches, he has gone to employers, he has gone to places that are safe spaces. If someone is working, I don't see how they're committing a crime. So that is the problem. I can say that because my immigration story is one of an immigrant who came from Barbados. My father, who came from Barbados to the US on a painter's contract. He never left. He sent for me. So he was undocumented in the US until approximately 1981, when Ronald Reagan said all undocumented come out and become legal citizens. So I can talk about immigrations and talk about people who benefit from immigration. Yes, there are unlawful people here, and yes, they should be removed. But at the same time, this is not how it should be done. This is not how terrorizing homes, terrorizing children. There are children here crying. We're discussing birthright. If you are born on the soils of the U.S. or if you are born on a U.S. territory, John McCain, American hero, he was born in Panama. Yes, he's an American citizen. You should, the idea that birthright citizenship, 14th Amendment in the Constitution, should not go into effect is disgusting. So yes, we have laws.
But 1 second, let her finish, Sunshine.
Yes, we have laws. Yes, we have ways of coming into this country. The most, people focus on what we see in the media. The most people that come into the U.S. and stay are considered undocumented. If you stay past your time, your visa, you're considered undocumented. They come on a plane through the airport. We have Italians, we have any Europeans come, they do exact same thing. Why are we only focused on Mexicans or people who come through or climb a fence? That's disgusting. That is a very small portion of the amount of people that immigrate into the US. They come through the airport and they never go home. That is the story of coming to an America. That is the story of every immigrant. We come here, we figure out a way to make ourselves better. We go to school, we do what we have to do. You're focusing on, yes, crime. I understand crime. We're focusing on gangs. Yes, but this is not how we do it. We don't frighten people. We don't cause mayhem and chaos. And that's what the Trump administration have done. Obama has deported the most, more than Biden and more than Trump. So I don't understand why this here has become the only reason it has, put it this way, it has become is because it is a political issue. It's a political issue. He has people that he has to abide by. When you sing for your supper, this is what you have to do. You have people who contributed to your campaign, contributed to whatever they need to contribute to, have a say at the White House. There are people in the White House right now that we did not elect. We did not say that they can run anything in this country, but they're there because of how the draconian rules and all types of, like, what we call charlatans. These are charlatans. They don't understand government. They're there. He got elected, and now the position that we're in. The Caribbean has to be concerned, because if you thought coming through the pandemic and how you have to think about, how did I live through the first administration? Did I suffer? Did I barely make it? How did I live? Prepare for the next 4 years, because that's what you really have to think about. What is going to happen in the next 4 years? These are executive orders. When the next election happens, some of these laws are going to literally just go away on that same day. They're going to do the exact same thing. Executive order to move this away, because it's just unruly, unmannerly, and I don't think that we should have to live in a place where, how can I say it? Like I said, charlatans running the government right now. People who have no experience, the same way you just discussed about the type of people that we elect. And yes, they have a diploma. Yes, they have some sort of, but they ran businesses, but they haven't run government. Running government and running a personal private business are two different scopes. Yes, the structure is the same, but the business, you don't allow your consumer to narrate what you do. In government, the consumer is the voters. Yes, the consumers get to say, the voters get to say how the government is run. And this is not how to do it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Michelle. Over to you, Sunshine.
I heard you mention about your father being in the country all these years, but he was here in violation of the law. There is no excuse, even if you didn't commit a crime. Section 19 of the Immigration Employment Act, every employer have to see that form is full, and the employee have to prove that they either have a valid work permit, or is a permanent resident, or is a legal citizen. I myself had to fill that form many times. And any employer who employs somebody that did not qualify under that 1.9 can be subject to penalties or arrests. If he is told to remove those people and he don't, he is in violation of federal law. This is federal law we're talking about. And the president, whether it's Biden, whether it's Obama, who have the power to invoke those federal laws. And every president uses executive order because that's the priority of a president. Some things have to go before Congress, but some things do not have to. They are done by executive orders. That's the power of the president. That's the way America is set up. So what he is doing is not different to what nobody else has done. It's just that people have this, that's all about Trump. It's not about Trump. This is about enforcing laws that were on the book that was not enforced. If you entered the country illegally, that's strike one. You work illegally, that's strike two. So if you're lucky not to get catch, okay. But if you are caught up in enforcement and you are repatriated, it's not the government's fault. You were there in the country illegally, undocumented, and you're working illegally according to the government. You see, this is what people are failing to understand. It doesn't matter how much years you were here. It doesn't matter if you commit a crime or not. But if you come to get a criminal and somebody is there that's also illegal, that person will be taken along. That's what the law is. And anytime you're illegal, you can be removed from the country. You don't even have to commit a crime.
Well, Mr. Sunshine, life is not black and white.
Let me talk. I let you talk. Let you talk.
Yes, yes.
I let you talk, please. You are inexperienced and you're talking about charlatans and all this kind of things. Every prime minister or government selects a cabinet or people who will go along with fulfilling his agenda and who knows about things. During Trump's first term, the country was prospering. We had the lowest taxes, okay, 1.2% inflation. Biden came in and it ran up to 9%. We had gas prices running as high as $6, $7. When Trump was in, it was $1.89. So I don't know, you're talking about food prices was low, mortgage rates was 3.4%. So now, as you can talk about this, look what he did his first term. He didn't do nothing crazy, but now that he's enforcing the immigration laws because he told you what was going to happen. These are people who were supposed to be out the country before he came into office. That's how they pick them up. They didn't went to no schools. That is not true. The CIA went to a school because they had an investigation of threats by someone in the school. And they said it was the ICE. It wasn't ICE. It was the CIA that went to investigate the threat at the school, and the lie and say it was ICE. But what you don't understand, sometimes the criminals will be in the street doing crime, and if they're near the school, they see police coming, they run in the schoolyard.
Okay.
So if they go in the school, hold on, if they go in the schoolyard, then they can go and take them in the schoolyard. Sometimes they run up on the church step or a church, so they run inside the church. Well, they have authority to take them out that church. They're not raiding the church. They're not raiding the school. That's not the truth. They haven't went and raided one school or one church. But people tell the children, oh, then you're putting children on crime. But you know you're there illegally. You have your children there illegally. As for birthright citizenship, the 14th Amendment does not guarantee birthright citizenship to people who are in the country legally and born a child. Are you coming pregnant and you drop that child? It does not guarantee that. The 14th Amendment was for us slavery, that to give the slavery the same rights as the enslaved and other people, that they have rights to own the land, the children have the right to school, the child have rights to everything the same as the others. Okay. It was for that. It was not for people who was in country legally. It does not give guarantee citizenship to people who are illegally. That's what you all don't understand with 14th Amendment. You all have it all wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sunshine. We have 10 minutes left. Now, what we want to do, guys, is to look at the Caribbean specifically. You're both from the Caribbean. So that is what. So we've heard your views on what you think, on what Trump is doing. How do we prepare ourselves here in the Caribbean, Michelle? Can we really prepare ourselves? I mean, I was reading today that they had, while there were, regular people being deported, but there were people who were child molesters, according to Jamaican newspaper, The Gleaner. There were people there who committed murders and so on. And I suspect it would be the same thing for Barbados, because they have at least 50 something that were detained since in November to be sent back. So I figure those are people with criminal backgrounds as well. How do we really prepare, Michelle, as a Caribbean? That's where we want to take the conversation now.
Well, I don't think it's unusual for someone. To me, they have made it a political issue. Deportation has been going on for criminals through all the administrations. I don't believe that every administration gets it right, but I do believe the way it's being done is the problem.
But we're moving along from there, and so we're going to have an influx. It's going to be more than what we normally have, and it's going to come on a sudden. You know what I mean, Michelle? It
depends on what island it is. It really does depend on what island.
Give me a moment, Sunshine. I'm going to come to you. Continue what you're saying, Michelle.
It depends on what island it is. Some of the things that I am concerned about when it comes to repatriation of the criminals. The things that they've learned outside are not in particular islands. When we talked about the Mollies a couple of nights ago, Mollies is something that's 20 years old in the US, right? So the things that they've learned and the things that they've done here, yes, that's going to be a problem in the Caribbean, because those things will be introduced to people in the Caribbean. So yes, that is a problem. That is something you have to worry about. The things that looking for work. If people here already don't have jobs,
right?
Bringing people back, sending them back, that's going to be a problem. Absolutely. Crime will grow up. Absolutely. Because they will continue on a criminal path. This is not economically feasible for a lot of places. It's not economically feasible for the US, but it has to be done. I am not against deportation, and I'm definitely not against deportation for criminals. But like I said, this is humane. We all are humans, and I'm a person of compassion and a person of reason. We can't just look at paperwork and just decide that, okay, this person fits that criteria. That's what it's done.
So Michelle, what you said something about it depends on the island. So you're thinking that the deportation will be very different for how it pans out to be different based on the island. Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Okay, for example, Barbados, Barbados is used to be part of lotteries. Like they have lotteries, what do we call green card lotteries, right?
Yeah.
So there are some islands that are not part of those type of things. They were too criminal from the beginning. The United States just deemed them like there's a lot of violence going on. They're not part of those type of systems. So that's why I said it depends on the criteria of the island, what is going to happen.
Okay, understood. Sunshine, we want to move the conversation along, and we only have 5 minutes. I want to move it along, and I want you to.
Everybody have the right to decide who enter their country and who should not enter. It's not inhumane to remove people who are raping, murdering, stealing, gun running, doing home invasions and stuff like that. It's not inhumane to remove a national security threat.
Yeah, so Sunshine, how does the Caribbean?
Let me finish. Now the Caribbean countries, and not just this has happened, 179 countries is involved in this deportation. It's not the Caribbean. So each country was told in advance that these deportation will happen of the worst of the worst. So it's up to each country head of state and their law enforcement to have prepared themselves, to make preparations to deal with this because they know it's coming, and set things in motion where they could deal with that. They know who coming in with most of criminal element. So they could deal with that the same way everywhere on their soil committing the crime. They know who they're getting. Make preparations to deal with that. The ones that are not as bad, you could have them in some program to try to bring them back. And the ones who are hardened criminals, you lock them away. You lock them away. If you commit a murder and you run somewhere, you get punished for that. If you rape somebody, you get punished for that. If you try to molest them, you get punished for that. So it's up to the people to make preparations because they knew in advance that this was coming. It's your people, it's your citizens, it's your duty to look after them and punish them or curtail them in everywhere you can. She talked about Mali. Well, the drugs in Barbados and the guns, and these people come in and bring them. They didn't bring them. So if the government is not dealing with that there, it's all their fault. The government have to be proactive in curtailing violence and antisocial behavior. That's the role of each and every government, whether it's the Caribbean, whether it's Haiti, whether it's China, wherever these people come from. Their government must have that in motion and have it in place. But that's what we do. We're trying to clean up the place and get rid of the threats and the crime. And then the people, they have to deal with that because they empty the jails and everything and send them in and mark all these criminals. So you take your criminals back and you deal with them. And what I will say in wrapping up, if these governments in all these places had look out for the people's interests and say to themselves, this problem would never have occurred in the first place. It's the heads of government that are to blame.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But thank you both for joining us tonight. And I will give each of you half a minute to do have a final word on this. And let's continue to be courteous to each other. Listen, we normally have on the show, as you all know, everybody, we normally, we're family, we're saying the same thing. And it's good sometimes, to have a different opinion in the chat. I told you fireworks was going to go, Michelle and Sunshine, if fireworks going in the chat, because if there's 700 of us on here, we're all saying, it might split in two, and that's good. That's fine. But Michelle, we want to hear from you. Take half a minute and say what's your final word to the people this evening.
My final word to the people is if you are a migrant immigrant, you are here. There are things that you need to do to prepare yourself because we don't know. We don't know if they're coming to your workplace. We don't know. We have a lot of people who take care of the elderly. We have a lot of people at home who depend on the money that you send back. So I'm just saying, prepare yourself because this administration is just wheeling and dealing at this point. It doesn't even make sense what these things that they're, the things that he's just putting on the table. For example, today, now there is no Black History. There's no Martin Luther King. There's no Juneteenth. There is no Black History Month. That was wiped away in the federal government as of today. You will not be celebrating. Those things will not be acknowledged. What that got to do with immigration or what that got to do with running government, I don't know. But that's where we are today. Okay. There is no Black history, anything. So just prepare yourself for the next 4 years.
Yes. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for coming on. And Sunshine, half a minute to give your final words. It's a pleasure having you here, sir.
The Bible said, prove all things and hold fast to what is fine and make sure of the more important things. Mm-hmm. The things you're talking about are not the important things. The important things now, as the world needs to become more stable and more civilized. So if we try to curtail the uncivilized people, we will have a more civilized world. So it's up to the governments, each one, to make programs to bring civility to their citizens. And those who do not want to be civilized, they are supposed to be dealt with accordingly. And that's what we're doing. President Trump is merely following the law. That's what it is. And every head of state can do that. And that's what they have to do with those that are repatriated, follow the law and deal with it accordingly.
Yes. Thank you all so very much for coming on tonight, Michelle and Sunshine. And Michelle, you're in Florida, right?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Nice, warm. Is it warm still there right now?
Today's probably the first day.
and Sunshine from the diaspora, and he is in Sunshine is in New York, and actually we are starting this session here on Friday nights for the diaspora. We have a section,
Sure.
and we call it dumplings in the diaspora. Dumplings from the diaspora. So we had some big dumplings falling tonight. They're throwing dumplings at us tonight. Dumplings from the diaspora. That's what this section is called, this segment. Thank you all so much. Have a great night, and God bless you.
Thank you,
God bless.
Marcia. And good night, Barbie.
Yes, all right. Oh boy, that was good. That was good, guys. That was good. And I think Michelle is fine. Michelle didn't feel disrespected. It's a conversation, and you know, and Michelle is quite good. I know Michelle. Michelle is quite good. So let us focus on the point that they were able to get their points across, and you know, we're going to have some more conversations like this. I think it's important that we do that. And, you know, as we're talking about different issues, it's okay. I think they both had very good points, and you can listen to it and decide what your belief. But the point is that we have persons that are going to be deported, citizens deported into our country. And we have to get ready for it. The Attorney General, the all the different departments, the police, everybody has to get ready for it. The prisons, because some of them will go straight into prison. Some will, you know, then the job market. What's going to happen? Do we have enough jobs for them? But I have to listen. I have another joke to read to you before we go. One last thing to read to you, and I have to find it. You must bear with me to find it. Okay, please, please, please. And I'm going to find it tonight. Before I go. I'm going to find it tonight. I'm going to find it tonight. Oh, Lord, where is it? Okay. Somebody wrote, what are Kerry and Mia worrying about? Trump helping them with the we gathering. Tell the people to come along home. Trump sending them free of charge. So they're saying that this is going to help with the we gathering. So why are we worrying ourselves? tell Mia and Kerry, don't worry anything about it. The people coming home. We gathering is happening. Sometimes you make jokes out of things. Okay. All right, guys, have a good night. It's been a great show, and I enjoyed it tremendously. All right. God bless you all. Have a good night. Don't forget, we're going to see you again on Sunday. On Sunday, we do have the former Minister of Culture and Sports, Stephen Lashley, is going to be on talking about the cartel, Vibes Cartel. He's going to be on again. Once again, we didn't get to touch everything we wanted to do tonight. What's left over, we're going to do it on Sunday. Okay, please bear with me. Thank you all so very much, and have a great night. Bye-bye.